Chapter 201. Wu Tai, can your Wu clan really confirm that this is Little Snow's snow gauze gown? The person who revealed Little Snow's origins asked. Wu Tai raised his palms and gestured for everyone to be quiet. He looked at the gown and sighed. We can't be sure before we verify it, but after we verify it, I won't believe anyone who says it isn't the snow gauze gown. On the surface, this item really doesn't look much different from a woman's clothing, but in reality, it has many wondrous uses. Perhaps only a divine craftsman could refine such a wondrous treasure. Is the name of the divine craftsman Wuxia on it? Someone below the stage shouted. Wu Tai shook his head. No. The person who revealed Little Snow's origin smiled. If it really is the snow gauze gown, then the name Wuxia on it is probably fake. Rumor has it that this item is one of the few divine craftsmen who didn't leave their name on it. What? Isn't it said that divine craftsmen would leave their name on the treasures they refine? That person asked. The former person smiled again. Everything has an exception. Rumor has it that Little Snow is a divine craftsman's maid and a soul formation cultivator. If her clothes have the divine craftsman's name on it, then the two of them aren't just master and servant, but Tao companions. Think about it, how could a divine craftsman leave his name on a woman's clothing? And rumor has it that this snow gauze gown is one of the treasures that the divine craftsman didn't leave his name on. There's also a rumor that the divine craftsman, on a whim, made 4 treasures for Little Snow at once. These 4 treasures didn't leave the name Wuxia on them, but instead left Little Snow's name. I don't know if that's true or not. Another person said doubtfully, it's just a woman's clothing, how powerful can it be? Elder Wu, just what kind of treasure is this? This snow gauze gown is indeed incomparably mystical, it's truly a work of art. No wonder it's the work of a divine craftsman. Wu Tai exclaimed in admiration. My Wu clan did experiments according to the effects of the legendary snow gauze shirt, and we discovered that it's exactly the same as in the legends. It's able to repel dust, smoke, water, and fire, and no matter what temperature it's worn, it's able to maintain the coolness and ventilation of the body, causing people to be neither cold nor hot and extremely comfortable. For us cultivators, its greatest effect is still its defensive function. After infusing it with true essence, it can produce a protective light shield that can withstand a full blow from a cultivator in the middle stage of the crossing tribulation stage. Of course, this is under the condition that magic treasures are not used and multiple attacks are avoided. Apart from that, only cultivators at the end of the tribulation transcendence stage would be able to break through the defense of this treasure. It was even stronger than magic treasures like the Vajra bracelet. Even though such a defense couldn't be considered to be very good, and it was even inferior to ordinary high-grade defensive magic treasures, the various miraculous effects it possessed were sufficient to allow it to step into the ranks of high-grade magic treasures. The value of this snow gauze gown is probably due to its miraculous effects. Everyone clicked their tongues in wonder. A piece of clothing could actually have so many magical effects. The divine craftsman really deserved his reputation. Unfortunately, it was a piece of clothing for women. Most men couldn't wear it. Thinking like this caused everyone to have a headache. It seemed like the legendary divine craftsman didn't do proper work, so why did they refine some useless magic treasures? The demon-revealing mirror before them was the same. Being able to be proficient in such a strange and obscene Tao, their attainments in equipment refinement could be easily imagined. If it was used properly, then how great of a treasure would it be to refine? Yu Qianshou didn't think so. Hearing Wu Tai say that the clothing had so many functions, even better than the best air conditioner in his previous world, his eyes lit up. His sister and Chu Ping are both like to wear white. If he bought it, it would be perfect for them. Damn. Didn't the legendary divine craftsman say that he could make spirit treasures? Why does he have to be so sentimental? Someone scolded. Many people laughed along. Anyway, they definitely couldn't afford this thing now. They just wanted to join in the fun. So someone shouted, is there any disciple of the Moon Clan here? Why don't you buy it for Fairy Qianghua? I think it'll be perfect for her. Then there was another round of laughter. You can't say that. Wu Tai waved his hand and sternly said to everyone, I won't hide it from you all. That gentleman said that the divine craftsman made 4 treasures for Xiao Shui on a whim. They are the treasures that will be auctioned in the last 4 rounds. Snow Luo gown is one of them. The other 3 will be displayed one by one in the next 3 rounds. Although they can't be compared to top-grade Dharma treasures, they were made by the divine craftsman casually. They can't be compared to spirit treasures carefully made by him. What? Cloud-chasing hairpin, Qiyun handkerchief, and snow-long damask are all here? The person who revealed Xiao Shui's identity stood up and asked, "Since the 4 items are here, why is the Wu clan auction house selling them separately?" "Yes. Take them out together for everyone to see." The scene was a bit chaotic. Some people also joined in the commotion. Wu Tai wanted to slap himself. Wasn't he just asking for trouble? Selling the 4 treasures separately was obviously to sell them at a good price. The snow gauze gown, which was like the demon-revealing mirror, was a useless Dharma treasure, so it was specially arranged to be sold here. He hoped to use the reputation of the divine craftsman to create the same effect as the demon-revealing mirror. Plus, the snow gauze gown was of a higher level than the demon-revealing mirror and was more practical. It should be able to sell for a good price. Everyone be quiet, everyone. Let's auction them one by one. We will definitely let everyone see the treasures in the end. Don't worry. Wu Tai waved his hand from the stage. In the dark room, Wu Sihai frowned. Even if the Wu clan wants to make money, you don't have to sell the whole set of Dharma treasures. Isn't this a scam? If you want to sell it, just take it out and sell it all together, someone shouted. Then someone followed suit and shouted, "Yeah, take it out and sell it as a set." There must be representatives from the supporting Immortal Island and the 10,000 demons here. Is the Wu clan afraid that they can't afford it? There were more and more jeers, and it was going to get out of control if this carried on. Yu Qianqiu smiled and said to Wu Liqing, "I also feel that it is better for the Wu clan to sell the 4 items together. If this continues, it will be the Wu clan against the entire cultivation world." Wu Liqing remained silent. The clan head would naturally deal with it. "Tiske. Everyone quiet down. You are so noisy." Qiu Wuyuan from the 10,000 demons roared and suddenly tore off his black clothes, revealing his true appearance. He shouted to the surroundings, "I am Qiu Wuyuan from the 10,000 demons. Everyone, if you have any theories, come and talk to me." Qiu Wuyuan stood up and the 4 people beside him stood up too. They tore off their black clothes and revealed their true appearance. They looked around with cold eyes and intimidated everyone. Someone whispered, "It's the 4 generals of the Mo clan." There. Those who followed the crowd were instantly silenced. They all sat down obediently. Who in the cultivation world didn't know about the 10,000 demons? How many of them didn't know about Qiu Wuyuan? This old man was an ambitious and ruthless demonic cultivator. He did everything according to his whims. When he was angry, he would kill without batting an eye. His calamity middle stage cultivation was especially terrifying. Who among the people who were jeering just now was his match? Even if they were all added up, they wouldn't be enough for him to kill. Moreover, a true expert wouldn't cause trouble like a hoodlum under normal circumstances. Someone said that it was better to offend the sect leader of the supporting Immortal Island than to offend such a person. Although Feng Xiangtian was more powerful, he had the title of a righteous person. He was more or less reasonable, so there was still a chance for him to live. Offending Qiu Wuyuan was simply courting death. Moreover, the famous 4 generals of the Mo clan was here too. None of them were easy to deal with. Qiu Wuyuan widened his eyes and looked around. It was noisy just now, but now it was completely quiet. Yu Qianqiu was stunned when he saw it was him. What was this guy doing here instead of staying in the 100 Flowers Valley? He looked around and could not help but chuckle. The evil name of the demonic cultivators is indeed very destructive. Once the name is announced, even Elder Wu's throat will be broken from shouting. In such a quiet place, there was actually someone talking and laughing in front of Qiu Wuyuan. Everyone could not help but look at buyer number 1 in a new light. They were all guessing his identity. Qiu Wuyuan naturally heard it as well. Seeing that it was him, he frowned and paused for a moment. He didn't say anything and instead shouted towards the stage, "Brother Wu, it's already like this. Why are you still hiding in the dark room? Please come out and talk." The brother Wu he was talking about was obviously Wu Sihai. Otherwise he would not be called a brother. Wu Sihai was the master of the Wu clan, one of the 4 major clans, so Qiu Wuyuan's tone was still considered polite. Wu Sihai walked out from behind the curtain and glared at Wu Tai. Then he cupped his hands towards Qiu Wuyuan and said, "Brother Qiu, long time no see. What can I do for you?" Qiu Wuyuan blew his beard and stared at him. "Your Wu clan is really unscrupulous. You actually sold the set of 4 transcendent artifacts separately. I think it's better to auction them all together." Wu Sihai smiled faintly and did not beat around the bush. He said directly, "The base price of the snow gown is 8 million superior grade spiritual stones. The base price of the snow long silk is 10 million superior grade spiritual stones. The base price of the Qi Yun handkerchief is 13 million superior grade spiritual stones. The base price of the cloud-chasing hairpin is 15 million superior-grade spiritual stones. The total is 46 million superior-grade spiritual stones. Brother Chiu, it's not a problem to sell all 4 transcendent artifacts together, but the problem is how many sects have the financial resources of the 10,000 demons to bid for such a high price? Putting aside my Wu clan, this is a loss for the seller and other buyers. Even if I agree to it, others will not agree to it. Therefore it's better to sell them separately. Chiu Wuyuan knitted his brows. He knew that Wu Sihai was speaking the truth, but Chiu Wuyuan wanted to take advantage of the myriad demons temple's financial resources. Otherwise he wouldn't have the good intention to stand up for the Wu clan. He didn't reply to Wu Sihai and suddenly turned to buyer number 3 and sneered. Dongfang Chang'o, you have been hiding at the side and watching the show for so long. Isn't it time to show your face? Dongfang Chang'o. Supporting Immortal Island's Cultivation Pavilion's elder, Dongfang Chang'o, was also here? Everyone looked over at the same time. When Chiu Wuyuan suspected that buyer number 1 and buyer number 3 were from Supporting Immortal Island, he started to observe carefully. Buyer number 1's cultivation was unfathomable, and he couldn't tell who he was. As for buyer number 3, he felt that he was very familiar. Chiu Wuyuan thought for a moment and knew that he must be Dongfang Chang'o. As the two of them had dealt with each other more than once or twice, they were very familiar with each other. Dongfang Chang'o snorted coldly. He stood up and removed the black cloak on his body, revealing his true appearance as he surveyed the surroundings. He cupped his hands towards Wu Sihai, who was on the stage, and his eyes met with his old enemy Chiu Wuyuan. The two people beside him also revealed their true appearance. Yu Qianqiu took a glance and knew that these two people were also the 2 Tribulation Crossing elders of Supporting Immortal Island's Cultivation Pavilion. Dongfang Chang'o. What do you think about the suggestion to auction these 4 items together? Chiu Wuyuan asked. Dongfang Chang'o said expressionlessly, if others don't have any objections, I naturally don't either. Actually, with Supporting Immortal Island's financial resources, of course, he hoped that they would be auctioned together. This way he could bid freely. Even if he didn't get it, it would be because he didn't bring enough money. When he returned, the sect wouldn't blame him. However, his identity was different from Chiu Wuyuan's. Chiu Wuyuan was from the Diabolism, while he was from the Righteous Tao. Naturally, he couldn't say it out loud for his own selfish reasons. Hypocrite. Chiu Wuyuan said disdainfully. He looked back at the front row and cupped his fists. May I know who buyer number 1 is? Can I have a look at your true appearance? Everyone looked up at the same time. It seemed that they wanted to see who this rich and imposing buyer number 1 was. Wu Sihai and Bai Zitsong, who were on the stage, knew that he was a disciple of Supporting Immortal Island. When they thought about the scene of him bidding against Dongfang Chang'o just now, they wondered what would happen if he revealed his true appearance. All of a sudden their expressions became strange. Damn it. The Diabolism is the Diabolism. They only know how to cause trouble. I still want to use the name of Supporting Immortal Island for a few more years. Chiu Wuyuan, why did you drag me into this? If Dongfang Chang'o and the others saw me, I wouldn't be able to explain myself even if I had 10 mouths. Yu Qianqiu cursed in his heart, but he said, I don't like to show my face in public. Don't drag me into your business. I'll do whatever you want. After he said that, if Chiu Wuyuan and the others didn't show their faces, or if there weren't so many people, it wouldn't have been a big deal. However, now that he showed the face of the 10,000 demons in front of everyone, the 4 generals of the Mo family couldn't take it anymore. They wanted to make a move immediately. Chiu Wuyuan opened his arms and blocked them. He said telepathically, don't mess around. This person's cultivation is unfathomable. We aren't his match. It seems that the 10,000 demons' face isn't enough. Chiu Wuyuan mocked himself. He smiled at Dongfang Chang'o and said, Dongfang Chang'o, everyone wants to see the true face of the first buyer. The 10,000 demons can't do it. Why don't you try Supporting Immortal Island? Dongfang Chang'o snorted. Naturally, he understood Chiu Wuyuan's intentions. However, if he didn't do this, not only would he be showing weakness to the first buyer, but he would also be showing weakness to the 10,000 demons. Moreover, there were so many people watching. Just as he was hesitating, Yu Qianqiu spoke. He had to speak. This Chiu Wuyuan had a stomach full of evil thoughts. It seemed that he wouldn't stop until he saw him. He had to think of a way to shut him up. Yu Qianqiu sneered and said in a deep voice, a group of frogs at the bottom of a well. Do you really think that you're the best just because you're the best? Chiu Wuyuan, it seems that it was a mistake for me to punish Supporting Immortal Island in the demon ghost domain a few years ago and let your 10,000 demons go. It's okay. I'll go to your 10,000 demons' place some other day and let you see as much as you want. As soon as he said this, Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan were shocked. They exclaimed in unison, "It's you." A few people in black suits also stood up. After that, the two of them looked at each other in dismay. They couldn't stop the shock on their faces. Others didn't know what Yu Qianqiu meant, but the two of them naturally knew what he meant. A few years ago, both of them were in the demon ghost domain. 5 elders of supporting Immortal Island who were in the final stage of passing tribulation were injured by someone. Dongfang Chang'ao had personally experienced it. How could he forget it? He was still thinking about it just now. As for Qiu Wuyuan and the other sex people, Dongfang Chang'ao, who had just woken up from a coma, also heard something. There was actually a person who could injure so many experts of supporting Immortal Island by himself. After that, all the sects guessed that there was a soul-forming expert hiding in the demon ghost domain. This was originally a secret between the higher-ups of the sections. Yu Qianqiu didn't know about it at that time. It was only when he heard Ferdinand talk about it later that he understood that Bai Changchun had made a move and shocked everyone. Now that the two of them heard such a thing from an outsider, it was a secret that most of the disciples in their sect didn't know. Thinking of this person's unfathomable cultivation, they suddenly felt a little creeped out. It was actually him. Chapter 202. The others were dumbfounded. Who was this buyer number 1? He actually said that he had punished supporting Xian Island, and Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan seemed to be afraid of this person. Oh my god. There was actually someone in this world that could make supporting Xian Island and 10,000 demons afraid of him. Everyone also felt apprehensive. Thinking of the demon domain that buyer number 1 had mentioned, everyone remembered another thing. There was a legend in the cultivation world that the top 3 sects of the righteous path and the devil path would send a group of people to the demon domain to fight every 5 years to see whether the righteous path or the devil path was stronger. Did they meet him at that time? Was that the time when supporting Xian Island was taught a lesson? Otherwise, who would go to the demon domain for no reason? The demon ghost domain trial that happened once every 5 years could not be hidden from others. Therefore, the top 3 sects of the righteous and demonic Tao had spread the news that they would compete in the demon ghost domain. This was reasonable in the eyes of the other sections. Wuxia, Bai Zizong and the others were shocked. Could it be that the power behind Yuchensho was so powerful that they had already taught supporting Xian Island a lesson? At this time, in the secret room behind everyone, a man in a black suit was murmuring, "Demon domain, supporting Xian Island, 10,000 demons, righteous Dao and devil Dao." Could it be that something happened during the demon domain trial? Who is this buyer number 1? He can actually make the top 2 sects of the righteous Dao and devil Dao so afraid. It seems that we shouldn't stay here for long. Qiu Weiyuan's face twitched uncontrollably when he heard buyer number 1 say that he wanted to take a stroll around the myriad demons' palace. He thought to himself, judging from your tone, I'm afraid you're not going to my myriad demons' palace just to take a stroll. He immediately smiled apologetically and said, Senior, you must be joking. My 10,000 demons is very simple, and there is really nothing to look at. If you don't want to show your face in public, naturally no one will force you. No one will force you. Senior, please go ahead. Everyone was stunned again. They had never seen Qiu Weiyuan of the 10,000 demons speak in such a tone. Wu Sihai and Bai Zitsong were puzzled. Qiu Weiyuan called Yuchensho Senior? Especially the way Wu Lishua looked at him, it was as if she was looking at a monster. Yes, I like hearing that. I don't like it when people force me. As long as no one provokes me, you guys can do whatever you want. After saying that, Yuchensho leaned back in his chair. Yes. Qiu Weiyuan smiled apologetically and almost broke out in cold sweat. After what happened today, he had lost a lot of face. However, there was nothing he could do about it. Challenging a soul formation stage expert was not enough. The scene quieted down again. Even the arrogant Fuxian Island and the 10,000 demons sat down quietly. Wu Sihai looked down and frowned. Was the auction going to continue, or was it going to be like what Qiu Weiyuan said, where all 4 pieces of the set were auctioned together? After thinking for a while, he cupped his hands and said to everyone, since everyone wants to auction all 4 treasures together, the Wu clan can't make the decision. I have to discuss with the seller and see if the seller is willing. Please wait a moment. In fact, he had no choice. Selling them separately was definitely not as profitable as selling them together. However, both the top sects of the righteous and demon sects had expressed their intentions. Even if Yuchensho was there to control the situation, it was still not good to offend them. However, if the seller didn't agree, then it was none of his business. After saying that, he went back to the backstage. Many people's minds started to spin. 5 ancient treasures had appeared in today's auction, and they were all the works of a divine smith. This was a little strange. They didn't know who the seller was. After a while, Wu Sihai came back. He cupped his hands and said to everyone, the seller has agreed to auction all 4 treasures together. After saying that, he waved his hand to the backstage. 3 Wu clan's disciples each carried an item out. There were no trays or red silk decorations. They were all directly carried out by hand. Wu Sihai couldn't do anything about this. The seller said he had something important to do and wanted the auction house to hurry up. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't agree to such a request because it involved the auction house's profits. However, this time they had to make an exception. After all, the seller had provided 5 items. He was really a big customer. He alone had made a lot of money for the Wu clan. The first Wu clan's disciple held up a black hairpin to show everyone. The second opened a white brocade handkerchief, and the third opened a long white silk. Wu Sihai introduced the items to everyone. This black hairpin is the cloud-chasing hairpin. This white handkerchief is the even cloud handkerchief. This long silk is the snow silk. As for the snow luo gown on the clothes rack, everyone already knows it. After a casual introduction, Wu Sihai said to everyone in a clear voice, I'm the one who said it first. The starting price of these 4 items is 46 million high-grade spirit stones. The highest bidder wins. The minimum increment must be no less than 1 million high-grade spirit stones. Everyone, please state your price. Everyone was startled. What was wrong with Wu Sihai? Why didn't he introduce the items? He was clearly just going through the motions. It wasn't even as detailed as Wu Tai's introduction. While everyone was still in a daze, Yuchensho shouted, 46 million. Wu Lishue, who was standing at the side, raised the sign above his head with both hands. His heart was thumping non-stop as he silently counted how many 500 high-grade spirit stones he had to pay to relieve the pressure on himself. The crowd was very quiet. After waiting for a long time, no one made a bid. Everyone couldn't help but turn their attention to Dongfang Chang'eo and Qiu Weiyuan, who had revealed their true colors. But the 2 of them were submissive as if they didn't know what was on their minds. In fact, if it was someone else who made a bid first, the 2 of them would definitely compete with each other. However, it was the first buyer who made a bid first. Needless to say, Dongfang Chang'ao had experienced it in the Demon Ghost region, so he didn't dare to compete with him. Qiu Wuyuan was even more afraid. If he really offended a guy in the soul-forming stage, he might really go to the 10,000 demons for a stroll. By then, who knows where the 10,000 demons would be. This kind of person was almost like a god. They really couldn't afford to offend him. If they couldn't offend him, they could at least hide from him, right? So, the two of them didn't say a word. In addition to the two of them, there were naturally representatives from the other 4 sections. They also knew in their hearts that they didn't get involved in the matter just now. Now they even jumped out to compete with him. Wasn't that just looking for trouble? Even if he didn't do anything, what if? The consequences of this what if was very serious. Such a strange scene immediately attracted the attention of the other sections. Although they didn't know what was going on, even Fuxian Island and the 10,000 demons had obediently stepped aside. Was there any need to reason? Therefore the scene was abnormally quiet. No one even shouted loudly. The situation of no one bidding appeared again. The person in the secret room was so angry that he clenched his fists tightly. After being messed with by the first buyer, he suffered a great loss. Wu Sihai, who was on the stage, waited for a long time but didn't announce the result. His eyes swept back and forth a few times and finally landed on Yu Qianqiu, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. His Wu family also suffered a great loss this time. Chapter 203. When it was confirmed that the auction item belonged to buyer number 1, Yu Qianqiu was stunned. Why didn't anyone bid for it? He thought for a while and understood that the soul formation stage experts were really awesome. They shocked the entire cultivation world without showing up. I have to work hard. After paying 4,600 peak-grade spirit stones, Yu Qianqiu returned to his seat and waited for the Wu clan to remove the auction hall's defenses. Afterward, everyone left and went to the backstage to retrieve their items. The items that they were retrieving were naturally the treasures that they had spent money to bid for. Backstage, Wu Sihai stared at the pile of top-grade spirit stones on the table and said helplessly, "Keep the top-grade spirit stones. Prepare the rest of the spirit stones for the seller." Clan head Martial Thunder walked over and smiled bitterly. "I'm afraid we can't keep them all. There are more than 10 million top-grade spirit stones in the warehouse. I'm afraid we have to take out some top-grade spirit stones to settle the seller's account." So much difference? Wu Sihai was shocked and frowned. "Can you transfer some spirit stones from other free auction houses immediately?" Martial Thunder shook his head and said, "I'm afraid not. The turnover of spirit stones in the free auction house is quite fast. It is very difficult to transfer so much money at once. Even if we can transfer more than 10 million top-grade spirit stones at once, I'm afraid they will stop first. Those sellers who are preparing to auction the goods will not agree to us not taking out spirit stones as collateral." "I see." Wu Sihai paced around and pondered. He stopped in front of the pile of top-grade spirit stones and nodded. "Take out 2,000 top-grade spirit stones and follow me to the front desk for the auction." Martial Thunder was shocked and quickly dissuaded. "Clan head, this is not good. Buyer number 1 just paid us the top-grade spirit stones. Isn't it a bit too? Besides, if these top-grade spirit stones are circulated, it will definitely shock the entire cultivation world." "It's fine. If buyer number 1 has any objections, ask him to look for me. I will handle it. As for whether the cultivation world is shocked or not, what does it have to do with our Wu clan? Our 4 great clans don't want to fight for the world's number 1. Wu Sihai laughed. He knew the details of the first buyer. Naturally he was well aware of this. Seeing that the patriarch was so determined, Wu Lei had nothing to say. He said yes, and ordered people to distribute the 2,000 top-grade spirit stones on 4 trays and cover them with red cloth. Then disciples carried the trays and followed Wu Sihai out. Wu Sihai came to the front of the stage and cupped his hands to everyone. Everyone, in view of the last 4 items being auctioned as a set, according to the usual practice of 10 grand auctions in previous years, only 7 have been completed this year. In order not to make an exception, my Wu family has specially taken out some of the rare items that we have recently obtained and divided them into 4 parts to be auctioned. We will use them to make up for the missing 3. I hope everyone can understand." Everyone looked curiously at the 4 trays covered with red cloth. Many people used their divine sense to scan them. Although they didn't find what was inside, they were shocked by the rich spiritual energy under the red cloth. What rare things were they? Everyone looked at the first buyer in the front row and sighed in their hearts. If it was really a good item, they were afraid that no one would dare to bid for it if he opened his mouth. Yu Qianqiu was also very baffled. What kind of item could actually have such rich spiritual energy? Wu Sihai sized up the audience and saw some clues from everyone's expression. He smiled slightly and thought, everyone don't worry. This time the first buyer will definitely not intervene. I don't believe that he will use the top-grade spirit stones to buy the top-grade spirit stones. Then he waved his hand at the 4 disciples at the side and said, "Open it." The 4 disciples respectfully accepted the order and removed the red cloth on the 4 trays on the table. A shiny purple appeared in front of everyone, and it was very eye-catching. Everyone below the stage was very puzzled. What is this thing? From the shape, why does it look a bit like a spirit stone? Yu Qianqiu, who was leaning on the chair, sat up straight. Others might not recognize it, but how could he not recognize it? This is obviously the top-grade spirit stone that I took out. The Wu family actually took out the top-grade spirit stone that I paid for to auction? Damn. Yu Qianqiu's mouth was so wide open that an egg could be stuffed in. Could this be the legendary top-grade spirit stone? Someone below the stage suddenly exclaimed. As soon as this statement was made, everyone suddenly came to a realization, and it instantly caused a huge reaction. They started to discuss and were all doubtful. Is it really the top-grade spirit stone? It can't be, so the top-grade spirit stone really exists? That's right. Wu Sihai glanced at Yu Qianqiu and said with a smile, everyone didn't see it wrong. It is the legendary top-grade spirit stone, and it is definitely not fake. There are a total of 2,000 top-grade spirit stones here. Everyone, this is considered a rare item, right? The audience instantly went silent again. So what if the item is good? Once the first buyer spoke, it has nothing to do with us. Can't you see that everyone is sitting up straight and waiting for nothing? Wu Sihai faintly smiled. He then cupped his hands towards Yu Qianqiu and said, buyer no. 1. Do you think it's better to sell these 4 trays of 2,000 top-quality spirit stones all at once or in 4 batches? Yu Qianqiu's face kept twitching under the black cloth. Mother **Ker, you took advantage of me and still want me to express my opinion. Recalling that he had disrupted the auction, he paused and replied, the top-grade spirit stone is also a spirit stone. I'm not interested in spirit stones. You can auction however you like. Anyway, I will not buy it. Don't drag me into this. Hearing this, everyone shook their heads and sighed. Not interested in spirit stones? What a rich man. But they were relieved. If he didn't intervene, everyone would have hope. Wu Sihai nodded and asked the crowd happily, what do you think? My Wu family has no opinion on auctioning them separately or together. They are all spirit stones. What's the point of dividing them? Let's just auction them together. Dongfang Chang'ao, what do you think? Qiu Weiyuan stood up and shouted. Since the first buyer did not intervene, he had nothing to worry about. Dongfang Chang'ao said expressionlessly, as long as everyone has no opinion, I have no opinion too. Who has any opinion? Speak up. Qiu Weiyuan looked around and shouted. Everyone was speechless. If Fuxian Island did not object, how could they have any opinion? Seeing that everyone was silent, Qiu Weiyuan nodded and shouted, Brother Wu, since everyone has no opinion, let's auction them together. Alright. Then I won't say anything. Wu Sihai pointed at the items on the table and said loudly, everyone knows that 1 top-grade spirit stone is equivalent to 10,000 top-grade spirit stones. There are a total of 2,000 top-grade spirit stones here. If we auction them together, the base price will be 20 million top-grade spirit stones. The highest bidder will get it. As for the minimum increment, it must be no less than 1 million top-grade spirit stones. Everyone, please state your price. The crowd suddenly became lively. Since the first buyer had said that he would not intervene, what else did they have to worry about? 21 million. 22 million. The price continued to rise. Damn it, you old fox. Yu Qianqiu gritted his teeth and cursed Wu Sihai's ancestors in his heart. Suddenly, Qiu Weiyuan's voice sounded in Dongfang Chang'ao's ears. Dongfang, this top-grade spirit stone is indeed a good thing. But just like what the first buyer said, a top-grade spirit stone is still a spirit stone. If the price is too high, it will not benefit us. Our 2 families are the wealthiest here. I believe it will eventually fall into our hands. In my opinion, there is no need for us to fight to the death and let that old fox Wu Sihai take advantage of it. When the price reaches a certain level and no one else is bidding, why don't we let one of us get it and we will split the price equally? 1,000 top-grade spirit stones each, what do you think? Dongfang Chang'ao also replied, that's a good idea. But what if you don't want to admit it after you get it? That's easy. As long as you agree, I will swear an oath. Qiu Weiyuan said. Dongfang Chang'ao only replied with one word, Okay. After the former made the oath, the righteous and the devil quickly came to an agreement. Chapter 204. There wasn't much suspense. In the end, the 2,000 best-grade spirit stones were bought by Qiu Weiyuan at a price of 40 million top-grade spirit stones. No one was surprised. After all, Qiu Weiyuan was the one who shouted the loudest when they were going to auction it together. Obviously he had long wanted to buy it. However, the reaction of Fuxian Island surprised everyone. They were quite negative when they shouted the price. Normally, the amount of spiritual energy in a piece of supreme-grade spirit stone should be about the same as that of 10,000 high-grade spirit stones. Doubling the price was indeed a bit too much, but this thing was very rare. It was unknown how many years it had been since it appeared in the cultivation world. This kind of thing was definitely not available to ordinary disciples. Only those elders with high prestige in the sect were qualified to enjoy it. Ordinary magic treasures couldn't be shared with everyone. On the contrary, this thing was the most popular among the elders. After all, no matter which sect the elders were from, the supply of spirit stones was limited. No matter how much they had, they couldn't go too far. If they gave tens of thousands of top-grade spirit stones to each elder, even if they didn't say it, they would definitely have a lot of complaints in their hearts. But this thing was different. It couldn't be given to all disciples, could it? Big sects had a lot of disciples. Even if you split each top-grade spirit stone into several pieces, it still wouldn't be enough. Those who were qualified to enjoy it were naturally those with high prestige and high positions. Therefore, this thing was really the best item for bribery. Whoever brought it back would be guaranteed to gain both fame and fortune, and everyone would praise them. Yu Qianqiu, who was below the stage, was very angry. In the previous rounds of auction, he had taken out nearly 8,000 best-grade spirit stones, which was equivalent to nearly 80 million top-grade spirit stones. In this auction, the price had doubled. In other words, the best-grade spirit stones he had taken out were worth more than 150 million top-grade spirit stones. So much money had been earned by others. He was like an idiot. He had to suffer in silence. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't angry. Originally, he was thinking that he had disrupted the auction and felt a little guilty. Right now, the Wu clan had made a huge profit, and it was much better than the commission from the auction. It was likely that the rest of the supreme-grade spirit stones had fallen into the Wu clan's pocket. Wu Sihai didn't expect the price to be doubled. In this way he felt a little sorry for Yu Qianqiu. It was like slapping Yu Qianqiu's face and treating him like an idiot. Although he was thinking about it, he didn't show anything wrong on his face. He calmly ended the grand auction and welcomed everyone to the other free auctions. After the auction was over, those who left were naturally the 4 buyers who had obtained their treasures. After each of them claimed their treasures with their tokens, Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Weiyuan walked out of the auction house calmly because they had already revealed themselves. Even if everyone knew that these 2 people had treasures and a huge amount of wealth, who would dare to rob them? As for the other buyers, the Wu clan arranged for them to enter the Wu clan through the secret passage. Then they returned to their real bodies and quietly crossed the river to the Hat Island. No one knew who the second buyer was. As for Yu Qianqiu, naturally after exiting the secret passage, he directly returned to the Jinka house in a huff. When Bai Zitsong and the others returned to the Jinka house from the Hat Island, they all surrounded Yu Qianqiu and looked at him. They all knew that he was rich, but they didn't expect him to be so rich. Wu Lixue, on the other hand, tilted her beautiful head and kept looking at him. She was thinking about a question that she didn't know when she would be able to figure out: how could he be so rich? Yu Qianqiu leaned on a chair and rolled his eyes at them. He said unhappily, "Don't disturb me. I'm annoyed." They smiled and didn't say anything. Then they heard a voice from outside. "What are you annoyed about? Is it because of those supreme-grade spirit stones?" Outside the garden, Wu Sihai walked in alone with a smile on his face. All the juniors hurriedly bowed to him. He waved his hand at them and looked at Yu Qianqiu, who was sitting motionlessly on the chair. The latter was angry because of him, so he wouldn't greet him. "What? You're so angry that I took out the supreme-grade spirit stones that you paid for and auctioned them?" Wu Sihai laughed. "Yo." Yu Qianqiu stood up and rolled his eyes. "It seems like you already knew it was me. No wonder you're so unscrupulous." "What? That supreme-grade spirit stone is yours?" Wu Liqing exclaimed. The others also looked at Yu Qianqiu in shock. How many secrets did this guy have? "Alright, this is not the place to talk. Yu Qianqiu and the rest of you follow me to the Elder Conference Hall," Wu Sihai said with a serious face. He then added, "Shui'er, stay here." Wu Lixue felt wronged. It couldn't be helped. That was the family rule. Women were not allowed to enter the Elder Conference Hall. They turned around and left. Suddenly, a certain someone pretended not to hear them. Wu Liqing walked over and pulled Yu Qianqiu's arm. "Let's go. Let's go." "What? Can you be more polite? Don't drag it, I have something to do." Yu Qianqiu struggled. Bai Zitsong came over and clamped his other arm. "Stop nagging. What can you do?" Tan Fei and Jings were rolled up their sleeves and wanted to hug his leg. They wanted to carry him away. Wu Sihai turned around and smiled at the young people. He was happy for their friendship. "I'll go by myself. I'll go by myself. Damn it. Why is the Wu clan like a den of thieves?" Yu Qianqiu, who escaped from the clutches of the young people, said angrily, "Wait a minute. I still have something that I haven't given to Wu Lixue." He took out a red and black object from his storage bag and gave it to Wu Lixue. It was the so-called vermilion bird egg that he bought with 300,000 top-grade spirit stones. Wu Lixue took it and hugged it in her arms. She peeked at her grandfather secretly. Wu Sihai frowned. "Shui'er. What's going on?" Wu Liqing quickly took over the topic and explained. After listening, he looked at Yu Qianqiu and didn't say anything else. If it was in the past, he would definitely scold his granddaughter for accepting 300,000 top-grade spirit stones. However, it was a different story for Yu Qianqiu. Moreover, 300,000 was just a drop in the ocean for him. With Wu Sihai leading the way, the group of 6 arrived at the back of the Wu clan. It was the Wu clan's ancestral hall, which was also the Wu clan's elders' meeting hall. Bai Zitsong and the others also felt strange. Why would Wu Sihai bring an outsider like Yu Qianqiu to such a place? Yu Qianqiu looked around along the way. He didn't seem to care, but he was actually looking around carefully. He noticed that the surroundings were loose on the outside but tight on the inside. The security was very tight. It was worthy of being the Wu clan's important place. After entering the Wu clan's ancestral hall, Wu Sihai dismissed the irrelevant people and led them to the main hall. Yu Qianqiu immediately saw many memorial tablets on the wooden table in the middle. It was obvious that they were the memorial tablets of the Wu clan's deceased clansmen. He couldn't help but mumble, "Why did this old man bring me here?" Looking further up, there was a portrait hanging on the wall above the wooden table with many memorial tablets. The portrait was of an elegant old man wearing a plain robe. He was standing on a cliff with his hands behind his back. He was slightly tilting his body and looking at the stars in the sky. The old man's otherworldly and aloof aura was vividly displayed on the paper. Especially the night scene depicted on the white paper and black ink, it was very admirable. The entire portrait was drawn very vividly, and it was obvious that a lot of effort was put into it. There were a few lines of small words at the corner of the portrait. Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but look at them carefully. Wu Sihai was the first to offer an incense stick, followed by Wu Liqing and the others. They respectfully knelt down and inserted the incense sticks into the incense burner. When Bai Zizong saw Yu Qianqiu looking around with a doubtful expression, he smiled and walked over with an incense stick. The main hall is the portrait of my ancestor. Brother Yu, why don't you offer an incense stick as a token of respect? However, he saw Yu Qianqiu staring at the portrait with his mouth wide open. What did he see? He was stunned by the few lines of words at the corner of the portrait. It was written as follows: The wise sages often said, if the heavens have feelings, I was not confused back then. Now that I am older, I can understand some profound meaning after thinking about it. But it is too late. Deep regret. Hence, I left behind the portrait of the wise sage by Changchun for the future generations to admire. Tan Xiu's writing. Chapter 205. Oh my God. The old man in the painting is by Changchun? Are you kidding me? There's such a powerful guy in the 4 major clans? Is he the Bai Changchun that I know? He's a terrifying existence that could shake the entire Phantom region. Yo, what? Brother Bai Changchun is your ancestor? Yu Qianqiu tried to control his emotions but he still stuttered. Yes. Bai Zizong looked at the painting and asked doubtfully, my ancestor has passed away for more than 2,000 years. Could it be that brother Yu has heard of my ancestor? Died for more than 2,000 years? So it's not the same person. That scared me to death. I was wondering, with such a terrifying guy around, the 4 major clans would be able to do whatever they want in the cultivation world. There's no need to keep such a low profile. Yu Qianqiu heaved a sigh of relief and wiped his forehead subconsciously. No. I just happen to know someone with the same name as your ancestor. He's still alive and well. By the way, who's Tan Xiu? Is he the ancestor of the Tan clan? He quickly changed the topic. He had no choice but to change the topic. Bai Changchun's reputation made people feel guilty. It was fine if they didn't know him, but they knew how terrifying he was. For example, at today's auction he only vaguely borrowed his prestige, but he scared the number 1 sects of the righteous and demonic sects into silence. Amazing. Bai Zizong hesitated for a while. He didn't know if he should say it. He turned to look at Wu Sihai, who nodded in agreement. He smiled and said, it's Tan Fei's ancestor. He's from the same generation as my ancestor. Ancestor Tan Fei was skilled in painting. He painted 4 similar paintings, and they're placed in the ancestral halls of the 4 major clans. Good painting, good painting. Since he's Brother Bai's ancestor, I'll offer some incense to show my respect. Yu Qianqiu smiled and took the incense from his hand. After lighting it on the incense table, he bowed 3 times on the cattail hassock and lit the incense. At the side, Wu Sihai looked at the portrait and then looked at Yu Qianqiu. He frowned. After Yu Qianqiu finished offering the incense, he suddenly said in a deep voice, Yu Qianqiu, where is the person with the same name as the Bai family's ancestor? Yu Qianqiu had just turned around but his face stiffened when he heard that. He smiled awkwardly and said, I can't remember it either. I think it was some barren land. Oh master, why are you asking this? Wu Sihai's eyes flickered as he stared at him. Finally, he shifted his attention to the portrait and said leisurely, the Bai family's ancestor was gifted by the heavens. He was a rogue cultivator. When he was over 200 years old, his cultivation reached the final stage of tribulation passing. His Xian skill was rare in the world, but he didn't learn it from others. He created it himself by misleading the heavenly Tao. With such talent he should be famous in the cultivation world, but he didn't like to show off. Therefore, few people in the cultivation world know Bai Changchun's name. Even if there are people who know him, they're all defeated by him. Presumably he wouldn't show off. Now he's gone. He's indeed a talent. Yu Qianqiu praised the portrait, but his heart was beating fast. Could this Bai Changchun really be the Bai Changchun from before? He scratched his head and asked, Old master, what do you mean by telling me this? Bai Zizong and the others also looked at Wu Sihai. They didn't know why he suddenly said this. Yu Qianqiu, you must have heard of a rumor? Wu Sihai asked. Yu Qianqiu was stunned and said, What rumor? There's a rumor that the Tan, Jing, and Wu families originated from the Bai family. I can tell you clearly that this rumor is true. The ancestors of the three families were originally the followers of the Bai family's ancestor. They had always been by his side and listened to his orders. It could also be said that the ancestors of the three families were the disciples of the Bai family's ancestor. Unfortunately, the Bai family's ancestors' Xian skills were all comprehended from the heavenly Tao. It's different from the current cultivation world's method of increasing cultivation by accumulating spiritual qi over a long period of time. It could be said that it was a different path on the path of cultivation. It's not something that can be learned just because you want to learn it. He can show you the way, but in the end, it's still up to you to understand it. Once you understand it, your cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds. Unfortunately, no one in the three families, including the main Bai family, has this kind of understanding in the past 2,000 years. Wu Sihai shook his head and sighed. There's such a cultivation method? Yu Qianqiu was speechless. He thought, could it be the same as the legendary enlightenment in his previous life? Once enlightened, one can ascend to the heavens? Wu Sihai nodded and sighed. When the Bai family's ancestor reached 300 years old, one day he suddenly dismissed the three families. He asked us to establish our own sects in the cultivation world and support each other. He said that he suddenly had an epiphany and was going to cultivate in seclusion and not care about the world. The three families obeyed his order, but the cultivation world is a dog-eat-dog world. It's really difficult to establish a sect. Therefore, the Bai family's ancestor flew all over the world for a few days and secretly challenged the heads and top experts of the 10 major sects of the righteous and demonic sections. Within 3 moves, he forced them to swear a venomous oath to keep this secret. He also restricted their sects to not provoke the 4 major families for no reason during their lifetime. Because of this, the 4 major families got the opportunity to start developing, and that's how the 4 major families came to be today. Bai Zitsong and the others heard this and their faces were full of pride. The descendants benefited from the ancestors' methods. On the other hand, Yu Qianqiu was shocked. The 10 major sects were full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. The experts who cultivated in seclusion could not be estimated by outsiders. Moreover, it was inevitable that they would have some treasures in their hands. He had personally experienced On Kwangtsung. But none of the experts from the 10 major sects of the righteous and demonic sects could last more than 3 moves against Bai Changchun. Oh my God! What kind of method is this? How powerful was he in the past? Yu Qianqiu gulped and said, it's a pity that none of the 4 major families could inherit the Bai family's ancestors' Xian technique. What a pity, what a pity. It's easier said than done. Wu Sihai shook his head and said, it's because it's difficult. In order to maintain our current status, the 4 major families have no choice but to rely on spiritual energy to cultivate like other cultivators. Otherwise, the 4 major families would have disappeared long ago. Yu Qianqiu sighed and suddenly said, old man, this is the secret of the 4 major families. Why are you telling an outsider like me? Because you said you know a person named Bai Changchun. I want to know where he is. Wu Sihai stared at him and said. Yu Qianqiu smiled and said, I know of such a person. But you can't be thinking that he is the same person as the Bai family's ancestor, right? Do you really think someone can live for more than 2,000 years? The others also agreed with Yu Qianqiu's words and looked at Wu Sihai doubtfully. It's very possible. Wu Sihai nodded seriously. Yu Qianqiu's heart was thumping. He was almost sure that they were the same person. Otherwise, how could there be 2 people with the same name and surname? The probability of this was almost 0. However, he still put on a look of disbelief because he really did not want such a terrifying person to be used by others. Just thinking about it made him uncomfortable. Bai Zitsong and the others also did not believe it. Wu Sihai sighed and said, when the 4 major families started to stabilize, the Bai family's ancestor gathered the 4 of them together and told them that he was very likely to break through to the legendary demigod stage. However, the Tao was ruthless. He needed to cut off all worldly ties and have no distractions in his heart. Only then could he concentrate on his cultivation. He also told the 4 of them to support each other from now on. He would no longer interfere with worldly affairs and told them to take care of themselves. Just like that, the Bai family's ancestor floated away and disappeared without a trace. Chapter 206. What? Soul-forming stage? The juniors exclaimed. This was probably the first time they heard of such a secret. Yu Qianqiu was completely speechless. The old man in the painting was indeed the Bai Changchun who hid in that place. He was really heartless. He ran away from home for more than 2,000 years. Even if he didn't die, he still didn't go home. Was this what it meant to cut off all ties with the secular world? Wu Sihai nodded. According to the legends, If he really broke through to the soul-forming final stage, he should have no problem living for more than 2,000 years. Yuqinsho, can you tell me now where is this Bai Changchun you know? This time, even Bai Zitsong and the other three looked at Yuqinsho with fiery eyes. The consequences of having another soul-forming stage cultivator in the four major clans was obvious. The latter rubbed his nose and smiled bitterly. It's not that I don't want to tell you. I really have my own difficulties. I'll decide if I want to tell you after I think about it. Besides, I only heard it from others. I can't confirm that he is the ancestor of the Bai clan. Then can you tell me who told you? Wu Sihai asked. I can't tell you that either. After Yuqinsho said that, he saw everyone frowning. He couldn't help but put on a sincere and well-intentioned look. Old man, don't be unhappy. That person is not someone your four major clans can afford to offend. Even Fuxian Island and 10,000 demons don't dare to offend him. They have already suffered a great loss in his hands. There's such a powerful person? Wu Sihai was surprised. Old man, I have to say something that you're not happy about. This world is very big. What you see is just the tip of the iceberg. There are many people as powerful as that person. It's just that no one knows about them. Didn't you see Dongfang Chang Ao and Qiu Wuyuan's reaction today? Today I borrowed that person's name and you saw the result. Yuqinsho smiled bitterly. Hearing him say this, everyone was shocked. So that's how it was. No wonder Qiu Wuyuan would call Yuqinsho senior at that time. Wu Sihai hesitated. There are so many powerful people? Why have I never heard of it? It's fine if you haven't heard of it. It might not be a good thing for the four clans to know. They won't interfere with the matters of the cultivation world easily anyway, said Yuqinsho with a smile. He didn't even know if what he said was true or false, so why did he have to be so clear about it? If you really managed to invite that old monster out, would your four great clans still be of use to me? Wu Sihai hesitated for a moment before asking, Yuqinsho, tell me honestly, are these people related to the force behind you? Yuqinsho waved his hand at him and didn't want to continue this topic. He changed the topic and asked, Oh right old man, why did you bring me here? Seeing that he still didn't want to say it, Wu Sihai paused for a moment and took out a storage bag and threw it over, saying, Today's auction made you suffer some losses. This is the 10 million high-grade spirit stones that my Wu clan will return to you as compensation. Yuqinsho hugged the storage bag and smiled, saying, This is a good relationship and I'm in need of money to spend. The four of them felt disgusted. You're in need of money to spend? Wu Sihai shook his head and smiled bitterly. He brought Yuqinsho here because he wanted to show his sincerity and say some nice words to strengthen the relationship between Wu Liqing and the others. Of course, this was because he fancied the faint force behind Yuqinsho. But the previous episode made some things clear. For example, the force behind you. If he said nice words now, it would make the other party think that he fancied the force behind you, and that wouldn't be good. Since that was the case, he might as well let nature take its course. They didn't know that Yuqinsho wanted them to think that he had a powerful force behind him, who asked him to not be powerful at all, and he could only do things like using the name of the world's #1 faction, Fuxian Island. He wasn't afraid of stirring up trouble outside because he had a backer. Otherwise he would have been hunted down long ago. How could he still be leisurely here? Old man, why are there 5 artifacts refined by divine craftsmen in today's auction? They might not be top-notch artifacts, but they are all ancient artifacts. Don't you think it's strange? Yuqinsho suddenly asked. Aren't these 5 items all yours? Why do you care so much? Wu Sihai said in a bad mood. It was obvious that he was still a little angry that Yuqinsho didn't want to reveal Bai Changchun's whereabouts. Yuqinsho pretended that he didn't hear it and continued to ask, Old man, could it be that they were all taken out by the same person? Wu Sihai made a non-committal "oh" sound, which could be considered as an admission. Yuqinsho's eyes lit up and he didn't want to let it go. Who is it? The former coughed and said, This concerns the reputation of my Wu clan's auction house. Don't ask about this and I won't tell you even if you ask. Unless you tell me the whereabouts of Bai Changchun, I can consider telling you about the seller. Bullsh *T reputation old fox. If you don't tell me I won't ask any more. What does it have to do with me who the seller is? Yuqinsho scratched his head and acted as though the weather outside was very good. He said, Old man, if there is nothing else, I will go back first. In fact, the topic that Yuqinsho just asked also caused a lot of commotion among the other people who participated in the auction today. 5 treasures refined by a divine craftsman actually appeared at once. If there were other things like spiritual treasures, it would be a big problem that was enough to affect the entire cultivation world. There was also the appearance of 2,000 top-grade spirit stones. Did this mean that there might be a top-grade spirit stone mine? If any sect could get their hands on it, their overall strength would definitely soar. In places like the 100 Flowers Valley and Hat Island, almost every sect had a shop. Sometimes they didn't care about how much money they could make, but mainly to ensure the smooth flow of information. Therefore, almost every shop had a kind of communication array. The cost of setting up this array was quite high, so some sects that were too weak couldn't afford it at all. The news was constantly sent back to the sects from those people, and the sects also sent a large number of people to inquire everywhere. For a time, the silent cultivation world was completely lively. At night, Yu Qianqiu was in the bedroom of the quiet guest house. He couldn't calm down to cultivate at all. He was really affected by some things that happened during the day. He had seen the financial resources of those big sects in today's auction. If he hadn't happened to find the top-grade spirit stone mine in the demon ghost domain, he wouldn't even be worthy to carry their shoes. They were really big sects with deep roots in the cultivation world. He believed that the financial resources they showed were only a part of their strength. Moreover, most of the sects had their own spirit stone mine, which could continuously accumulate wealth. But his own money was going to be less every time he used it. It couldn't be regenerated. There was also the mysterious cellar. He didn't know if he had other more powerful magic treasures refined by other divine craftsmen. What shocked him the most was Wu Sihai's words. Bai Changchun was actually a rogue cultivator who had cultivated to the soul formation stage. At the age of 200, his cultivation had reached the late stage of the crossing calamity stage. This was simply incredible, not to mention that he was a rogue cultivator without the support of a sect. When he was 300 years old, he was able to challenge the top experts of the righteous and devil sects alone, and none of them could take more than 3 moves from him. Yu Qianqiu sat cross-legged on the bed with his eyes closed, murmuring to himself, "The great Tao, the heavenly Tao, the Tao of 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 Tao, the enlightenment, the cultivation of 1,000 miles in a day, the creation of a mystic technique, damn it. I wonder what kind of secret art this self-created Shen art is, isn't it a little too awesome? If I had known earlier, I would have memorized the Tao Te Ching in my previous life. Who knows, I might have been able to create some kind of Shen technique now. I can't stand it. It's so exciting." Chapter 207. After tossing and turning for half a night, he was unable to meditate. He wanted to sleep without a care in the world, but his mind was full of magic skills, and he had a belly full of evil fire. He got up and listened carefully. It was quiet outside, so he disappeared from the bed and appeared directly in Chu Ping'er's room. Chu Ping'er, who was meditating, suddenly heard movement beside her and was startled. Before she could react, a hand covered her mouth, followed by the familiar smell of a man. Then another hand reached into her collar and rubbed her chest wantonly. Chu Ping'er immediately leaned back in the man's arms and let him take off her clothes. The room was filled with the panting and moaning of spring. After venting, Yu Qianqiu felt much better. He used his divine sense to sweep the entire Misty Palace and found that his parents and brother were already asleep. Then he swept past Bai Suzhen's room, but found that she was not in the room. He was slightly stunned and immediately released his divine sense to check. On the cliff opposite the Misty Palace, a white figure was playing the zither and singing under the moonlight. Who else could it be but Bai Suzhen? Yu Qianqiu gently pushed away the plump, white and tender naked body that refused to let go and said, "You sleep first, I have something to do at Guan Yu's place." Chu Ping'er was extremely sad and let go of him reluctantly. He smiled guiltily and apologetically, put on his clothes and disappeared, leaving a stunning beauty alone on the bed, hugging the pillow he had just slept on. "So I am indifferent to prosperity, only happy for you, I want to accompany you away from loneliness and freedom." Bai Suzhen finished singing, and her jade-like fingers strummed the strings, echoing faintly. She asked without turning her head, "The song is very nice, I like it very much. You haven't told me what the name is." "You mean the name of the song?" Yu Qianqiu was stunned. Bai Suzhen turned her head and looked at him, as if she had already known that he was coming. Her beautiful face smiled against the silver moonlight and she nodded. Let me think." Yu Qianqiu scratched his head. He really didn't remember which song it was pirated from when she suddenly asked him. Fortunately, he remembered in time and nodded. "Go back. Gui Qilai?" Bai Suzhen furrowed her brows and murmured to herself. Then, her brows relaxed and she smiled gently under the moonlight. She sighed and said, "I'm afraid no one in this world can compare to you in terms of musical attainments." Yu Qianqiu was a little embarrassed by her words. Fortunately, he was used to being thick-skinned, so if he did not look carefully he would not be able to tell. He smiled awkwardly and said, "Whether this thing is good or bad, it can't be eaten, and it can't be used to improve one's cultivation. It's just something I made casually. Sister, you don't have to take it to heart." Bai Suzhen smiled faintly and looked into the distance, feeling the night wind blowing. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. He took out the items from his storage pouch and placed them on the zither. He smiled and said, "I bought them for you. Give them to Chu Ping. I don't need these things." Bai Suzhen lowered her head and glanced at them. Before she finished speaking, she suddenly stood up. She stared at the items on the zither as if she was struck by lightning. Her voice trembled as she said, "Cloud-chasing hairpin, Qiyun handkerchief, snow luo gown, snow long damask." Yu Qianqiu was a little shocked. This was an ancient item. How could anyone tell what it was with a single glance? Furthermore, she looked very excited. Yu Qianqiu could not help but ask curiously, "Sis, have you seen these things before? How did these things end up in your hands? How could these things end up in your hands? Tell me, how did you get them?" Bai Suzhen's voice became more and more excited. Her hands, which were half out of her white sleeves, were slightly trembling. "Sister, what's wrong?" Yu Qianqiu also became a little nervous. Bai Suzhen grabbed him and almost begged, "Quickly tell me, how did you get them?" "These are things I bought from the auction house." "Sister, calm down. What's wrong? What does these things have to do with you?" Yu Qianqiu's hands steadied her shoulders. "You bought them from the auction house?" Bai Suzhen broke free from his hands and picked up the snow luo gown. She flipped open the waistband and under the moonlight, she could clearly see the two words, "Little Snow." She immediately shook her head in a daze and said, "Impossible, impossible, you're lying to me. How could the auction house have these things? How could these things be auctioned? You're lying." Seeing that she was about to lose control of her emotions, Yu Qianqiu suddenly opened his arms and pulled her into his embrace tightly. He said in a low voice, "Calm down, calm down, calm down. Tell me what's going on. What do these things have to do with you?" Bai Suzhen, who was about to struggle, smelled the scent coming from his body and was instantly startled. Her breathing gradually calmed down and after a long time she said, "I'm fine, let go of me." Yu Qianqiu slowly released her and said in a soft voice, "What's going on?" Bai Suzhen gently hugged the snow luo gown and looked into the distance. She said, "These 4 things are treasures that have been passed down through the generations of my fox clan. Although they are not top-grade treasures, they are the tokens of the clan leaders. So only the clan leader has the right to wear and use them. Before I was expelled from the fox clan, these 4 treasures belonged to my mother. Because of me, my mother took them off and gave them to the next clan leader." "You were expelled from the fox clan?" Yu Qianqiu was a little surprised. "Yes." Bai Suzhen slowly told the story. In the bitter cold lands of the far north, there was a group of snow foxes. They were the fox clan that Bai Suzhen was originally from. The fox clan was also part of the Yao clan. The Yao clan had a lifespan that humans could not compare to. And Bai Suzhen had just gained sentience over 1,000 years ago. She was still a little fox and could not take human form. However, she had heard many legends about love between humans from her sisters. There were also stories about the love between the fox clan and humans. It was abnormally sad and mellow. The little fox was curious and full of admiration. She longed to experience the life of humans. So she sneaked out of the far north and ran in the direction of the legendary human residence. But when she finally arrived at the place where humans lived after many hardships, she discovered that everything was not as perfect as she had imagined. Almost all of the humans who saw her would want to kill her. There were sharp arrows flying at her from all directions. And when she hid in the deep mountains and forests, there were ferocious beasts that wanted to prey on her. She was completely panicked. So she ran and ran. She did not know how far she had run. But one day she was shot by a hunter in a forest. She thought she was going to die, but she was saved by a scholar. The scholar carefully saved her. Just when her injuries were almost healed, her mother, who had planted a strand of divine sense in the little fox's body, found her and brought her back to the fox clan in the far north. Ever since the little fox returned, the image of the scholar had been lingering in her mind. After cultivating for hundreds of years in the extreme north, she had already begun to cultivate. Although she was still unable to transform into a human form, she believed that she could already protect herself. She suggested to her mother that she wanted to repay the scholar's kindness. Her mother smiled and agreed to it, but she also made a request. That was, if she could not find the scholar, she must return. The little fox did not know the affairs of the world. How could she know that her mother agreed so readily? It was because ordinary humans could not live for hundreds of years. When she found the place where the scholar lived, it was already green mountains. Everything remained the same, but the people had changed. After wandering around the area for several years, the little fox was disappointed. She went back to the fox clan to report to her mother. She begged her mother to let her go out to cultivate. Normally, a normal fox clan would not be allowed to do so. But her mother had just taken over the position of clan leader and had some special privileges. She could not resist her daughter's request and agreed. Chapter 208. Thus, she once again went to the place where the scholar had lived. After wandering around for a while, she entered the mountains not far away to cultivate. Time passed quickly in the mountains and several hundred years passed in the outside world. When she came out of the mountains again, she was a beautiful woman who had taken human form. In the past few hundred years, aside from returning to the fox clan once every 10 years, she devoted herself to cultivating wholeheartedly. When her mother discovered that her daughter's cultivation outside was actually much faster than in the fox clan, she acquiesced to her daughter's freedom and allowed her to cultivate outside for long periods of time. Another 10 years later, when she returned from the fox clan, she went to the place where the scholar had lived. To her surprise, she discovered that a new thatched hut had been built there. Hearing the sound of someone reading a book, she could not help but walk over to take a look. When she looked out the window, her body immediately shook. It was another scholar, and he looked very similar to the one from back then. That scholar had suddenly discovered such a beautiful woman and was also dumbfounded. Thus, something happened that caused the entire fox clan to be enraged. The ancestors of this branch of the fox clan had passed down a strict rule that no matter if the fox clan was male or female, they were not allowed to have an ill-fated relationship with any human in the secular world. Otherwise they would be executed. When she returned to the fox clan, she knew that she would inevitably die, but who would have thought that she would be saved by the male branch of the fox clan? The fox clan was split into two branches, male and female. It had always been the female branch that held the position of clan leader. Who would have thought that the head of the male branch would find her mother, who was the clan leader of the entire fox clan? He said that he was willing to protect her daughter's life, but the condition was that she would pass on the position of clan leader to the male branch. It was natural for one to lick one's calf, so the female clan leader agreed. As a result, the male branch mobilized a powerful force and used more than half of the people to forcefully violate the rules that had been in place for countless years, finally protecting Bai Sujin's life. She could escape punishment, but she could not escape the fate of being banished. Her mother also passed on the 4 treasures of the Snow clan, which symbolized the authority of the clan leader, to the male branch under great pressure. The male branch finally got his wish and rightfully obtained the position of the clan leader. The rules of the Snow Fox clan that had lasted for countless years were finally broken. Yu Qianqiu knew what happened after that. After listening, Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but sigh. He didn't expect these 4 treasures to have such an origin. No wonder Bai Sujin was so excited. He couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. Since they are the inheritance treasures of your fox clan, how did they end up here? It must have something to do with the male line of your fox clan. I don't know. Bai Sujin painfully shook her head and said, "Let me go. I want to go back to the extreme north to take a look. Although I have already been banished from the fox clan, I want to see what happened to the fox clan. Why would the inheritance treasures end up in the auction house?" Yu Qianqiu hugged her and sincerely said, "Don't be anxious. Wait until I find out the origin of these 4 treasures. It won't be too late for you to go. Otherwise, you won't be able to come up with any conclusions if you run around without thinking. You have to trust me and wait patiently for a period of time." Bai Sujin clearly didn't want to wait any longer. "Listen to me, okay?" Yu Qianqiu indifferently said to her. Bai Sujin seemed to have no immunity to his words. She dejectedly lowered her head and agreed. Yu Qianqiu suddenly frowned and said, "These 4 treasures have been passed down in your fox clan for so many years. Could it be that Little Snow is related to your fox clan?" Bai Sujin, whose emotions had gradually calmed down, suddenly realized that she was in his arms. Her charming face instantly blushed. She slightly lowered her head and replied with her body trembling uncontrollably, "In ancient times, Little Snow was a member of my fox clan. Legend has it that she was a soul formation stage expert of my fox clan. Later on, she followed a human man called Mo Rookie to cultivate. When she returned, she used her martial power to unite the fox clan that was originally scattered in the extreme north. That was how the extreme north unified the Snow Fox clan. Those clan rules that were passed down were set by her." "Little Snow is also from the fox clan?" Yu Qianqiu was stunned. So the divine craftsman was as great as him. He also had a fox spirit with a profound cultivation by his side. That's right. Our fox clan doesn't know how to refine weapons. Most of the treasures we use are refined by that human called Mo-Rookie. They were brought back by Little Snow. Other than what Little Snow used, most of the other treasures have Mo-Rookie's name on them, including the mountain-piercing claw that you used. Speaking up to here, Bai Sujin took the opportunity to escape from his arms. She took out the mountain-piercing claw and opened it for him to read. Yu Qianqiu looked carefully and found the words Mo-Rookie in a lighter color. He really didn't expect that he had already used the treasures refined by the divine craftsman. He nodded and sighed, so that's how it is. I understand. Since
Don't
these
worry
are the
and leave it to
treasures
me.
of your fox
All
clan,
right,
you
I
can
still
keep them
need you to
first.
take care of my family.
Looking at the sky
After
that was
saying
already
that, he
slightly
disappeared.
brightening, he
In fact,
continued,
the last
I will
sentence
go
was
and
because
find
he
out
was
how
afraid
these
that she
treasures
would miss
got
her
here.
clan too much.
So he purposely told her to do something to distract her. After Yu Qianqiu returned, he sorted out the details of the whole matter. He opened the door and directly knocked on the door of Wu Liqing's room, who was accompanying guests at the quiet guest house. The latter heard the sound and opened the door. He was stunned and said, Yu Qianqiu? What's the matter? Bring me to your grandfather. I have something to talk to him about. Yu Qianqiu said directly. Now. Wu Liqing looked at the sky outside and said doubtfully, isn't it a little too early? The commotion here had also attracted Bai Zitsong and the other two. They all asked, what's the matter? Yu Qianqiu ignored the others and dragged him out. Don't be so long-winded. I have something important to talk to your grandfather about. Bring me there quickly. Wu Liqing helplessly led him and the others out of the quiet guest house. After arriving at the living room of the largest manor in the Wu clan, he asked him to wait for a while and went to look for his grandfather. Not long after Wu Sihai arrived. He also looked at the sky, then looked at Yu Qianqiu and asked curiously, what do you want from me? Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes and said, if there's nothing important, why would I disturb you so early in the morning? Wu Sihai smiled and said, oh. He looked at the others and said, what's the matter? Do you want to avoid them? We are all brothers. There's no need to avoid them. Yu Qianqiu said indifferently. The others looked at each other and felt a little warmth in their hearts. It must be something important to look for me at this time. Come with me. This is not the place to talk. Wu Sihai said and led them to a secret room. He turned around and asked, what's the matter? Just say it. Yu Qianqiu looked at him and said bluntly, I want to know who the seller of the 4 sets of treasures is. Bai Zitsong and the others looked at each other. Why did he ask this again at this time? Wu Sihai was startled. He put his hands behind his back and shook his head with a smile. I already said that I can't tell you about this. This matter concerns the reputation of the entire Wu clan auction house. Moreover, the seller didn't show his face from the beginning. How can I know who it is? Someone auctioned 5 artifacts refined by a divine craftsman at once. How can you not know who it is? Even if you haven't seen it before, I believe that even if a bird flew across your Wu clan's territory, you would be able to tell its gender, let alone a living person. Otherwise, this place wouldn't be called the Wu clan's territory. Alright, we are going a little too far. I promised you that as long as you tell me who the seller of these 4 treasures is, I will tell you Bai Changchun's whereabouts. After Yu Qianqiu finished speaking, he was afraid that it wasn't enough, so he added, I can basically confirm that this Bai Changchun is the ancestor of the Bai family. His cultivation has indeed reached the soul formation stage, I can guarantee you this. The others exclaimed in unison. This news was too important to the 4 major clans. Wu Sihai lost his composure and asked, are you serious? Don't worry. I am a man of my words. Even if I don't give face to the Wu clan patriarch, I will still give face to my 4 brothers. I won't lie to you. Yu Qianqiu smiled indifferently. What he was implying was that he didn't associate with the 4 major clans because of the power of the 4 major clans. Chapter 209. Wu Sihai hesitated for a moment, and then a trace of decisiveness flashed through his eyes. He nodded and said, "Deal." As expected of someone who's used to doing business. Yu Qianqiu smiled and said, "Lord Master, who exactly is that person?" Wu Sihai's expression was solemn as he said, "This person has never revealed his true appearance, but as you said, our Wu clan has been operating here for many years. We naturally have our own methods to find out who he is. Not to mention the sudden appearance of a mysterious patron, even if it's for the safety of our Wu clan, we still have to find out who he is. It's just that we're quite shocked to find out who he is. I hope that you won't drag our Wu clan into this. This person's background isn't simple." Yu Qianqiu waved his hand. "I know what to do even without your instructions. It won't be related to your Wu clan." "Who is it?" Wu Sihai frowned. "The young palace master of the 100 Flowers Palace, Yan Juexing." "It's him?" Yu Qianqiu, Bai Zitsong and the others exclaimed in surprise. The five of them looked at each other and then they fell silent. They seemed to be surprised, but at the same time, it seemed to be reasonable. Wu Sihai glanced at them and asked, "What's wrong? Do you have a relationship with this person?" "Not really." Wu Liqing shook his head. "This person seems to be very friendly on the surface and he likes to make friends. What happened to Shui in the gurgling house is indirectly related to him. She owed him a favor in the 100 Flowers Valley." "Friendly on the surface? What do you mean?" Wu Sihai stared at his grandson and asked. "He's very friendly and smart. He's so smart that I suspect he has ulterior motives and we don't dare to get too close to him. Brother Yu, on the other hand, eats whatever he wants and he doesn't hold back." Wu Liqing smiled. Yu Qianqiu glared and pretended to be angry. "What are you talking about? What do you mean I don't hold back? When did I skip your share? Do you think I'm the only one eating?" They looked at each other and were completely speechless, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. In fact, Wu Liqing really wanted to say, "Every time we eat, you eat more than the four of us." "Let's not talk about that for now." Wu Sihai waved his hand and said, "Yu Qianqiu, can you tell me where old ancestor Bai is now?" Yu Qianqiu sighed and said, "Can't you four clans give up on looking for him?" "No." Wu Sihai denied it right away. He sighed deeply and said, "You don't know what Patriarch Bai means to us four clans. It's not that we want to rely on him or anything. It's just that some people in the four clans think that it's meaningless for the four clans to be united for their own benefit. They are encouraging each other to set up their own sections. The situation is getting more and more intense. I don't know how many people are eyeing the four clans covetously. Once the four clans are separated, they are in danger of being annexed at any time. These people are short-sighted." Yu Qianqiu's gaze swept over by Zitsong's group of four. He thought to himself, "So it turns out that the four great clans are having internal strife. For Wu Sihai to say such words in front of these four people, it's likely that these four first successors don't agree with the idea of splitting the clan." Bai Zitsong suddenly put a hand on his shoulder and sighed, "Brother Yu, say it. The four clans need old ancestor now." Yu Qianqiu nodded and said, "How much do you know about the demon domain?" "The demon domain?" They were shocked. Wu Sihai said in a low voice, "You mean old ancestor is in the demon domain?" "Yes, he is cultivating in seclusion in the center of the demon domain." "Are you sure that you four clans can enter there?" Yu Qianqiu asked. "The center of the demon domain. Why is old ancestor living in seclusion there?" Wu Sihai paced around and pondered. After a long time, he exhaled and said, "Rumor has it that the demon domain has the 10 great demon kings and the ghost king. All of them have extraordinary cultivation. I have never heard of anyone who can enter the center of the demon domain. My clan may not be able to do it, but with the strength of the four clans, it shouldn't be a problem." Yu Qianqiu sneered disdainfully. "You four clans want to go deep into the center of the demon domain? The top 3 sects of the righteous and demon sects combined only dared to stay on the Sky Cloud Peak, which was not far from the periphery of the demon domain. They didn't dare to go too far away from the Sky Cloud Peak during the trial." Seeing him sneer, Wu Sihai was startled and said, "Do you think that the four clans can't reach the center of the demon domain?" Yu Qianqiu sneered and said, "I don't know how strong the four clans are, but I know that you are dreaming. You are talking about something that the four clans can't do. Not to mention the four clans, even if the entire Wuxia Empire were to join forces, they might not be able to enter the center of the demon domain." Bai Zitsong and the others were shocked, but Wu Sihai shook his head and said, "Yu Qianqiu, do you know how big the Wuxia Empire is? How many cultivators are there?" Yu Qianqiu said expressionlessly, "I don't care how big the Wuxia Empire is, but I know that the entire demon domain has a radius of tens of millions of miles. It is at least several times the size of the Wuxia Empire. The demon domain has such a large area? Wu Sihai was startled, then he changed the topic and said with a smile, although the demon domain is powerful, don't underestimate the cultivation world of the Wuxia Empire. It is different from what you see on the surface. According to the information collected by the Wu clan over the years, there are hundreds of cultivators in the final stage of the passing calamity stage who rarely show themselves. If these people join forces, where can't we go? The 10 great demon kings and the 10 ghost king can't stop them. Humph. Yu Qianqiu snorted and said, Old Master, do you really think that the entire demon domain only has the 10 great demon kings and the 10 ghost king? Isn't it? Wu Sihai asked. Old Master, I told you where the ancestor of the Bai clan is, so there is no need to talk nonsense. However, for the sake of my 4 brothers, there are some things I still have to remind your 4 clans. After a pause, Yu Qianqiu said word by word, Old Master, listen carefully. The periphery of the demon domain is guarded by the 10 great demon kings and the 10 ghost king. A demon king and a ghost king jointly control a territory. The demon king is in charge of the yang, and the ghost king is in charge of the yin. This is the periphery, and the inside is the most chaotic and dangerous place in the demon domain. There are probably nearly 10,000 demon kings and ghost king who have reached the final stage of the passing calamity stage. As for the other countless demons and ghosts, it is needless to say. Old Master, do you still think the power of your 4 clans can enter the central area of the demon domain? I'm afraid that none of you can come out alive. They were stunned. Wu Sihai swallowed and said, Nearly 10,000 demon kings and ghost king? How is this possible? If the demon domain had such strength, wouldn't it have occupied the human territory a long time ago? There are naturally secrets that outsiders don't know. Maybe you will have a chance to find out in the future. That's all I have to say. The 4 clans should know. Yu Qianqiu cupped his hands and said to Bai Zitsong and the others, Thank you for your hospitality these days. I have something to do and have to leave. My 4 brothers, goodbye. Wait. Wu Sihai stopped him and frowned. According to what you said, the 4 clans have no chance to find the ancestor at all. But I have never heard of what you said. Why are you so familiar with the situation of the demon domain? Chapter 210. He was doubting what he had said. Yu Qianqiu smiled. It's okay if you haven't heard of it. You'll know when you get to the monster ghost region. You're so sure. Have you gone deep into the monster ghost region? Wu Sihai asked. Yu Qianqiu's heart skipped a beat. He curled his lips and said, I can't say deep. I've been touring around the monster ghost region for a few days. I just have some friendship with the ghost king that you mentioned. They were shocked again. This guy's secrets had been peeled off one layer after another. Wu Sihai put on a look of disbelief and said, As far as I know, the 10 great monster kings and the 10 ghost kings never interact with people from the outside world. You said that you have some friendship with them. Forgive me for finding it hard to believe. I even doubt that what you said about the Bai clan's ancestor is true. Bai Zitsong and the other 3 looked at Wu Sihai in surprise. They wondered why he would say such rude words. Yu Qianqiu smiled calmly. Old man, what I said is true. I can't help it if you don't believe me. Time is the best proof. In short, I have a clear conscience. Wu Sihai looked at him and said, You said that you have some friendship with the ghost king of the monster ghost region. Do you have any evidence that can convince me? If you do, you can show me. It will make me feel at ease. Old fox. Yu Qianqiu sneered secretly. He scratched his head and smiled bitterly. I really don't know how to prove it. Old man, among the 10 ghost kings of the monster ghost region, there's a ghost general called the Ghost King. Have you heard of him? The ghost general of the monster ghost region. He was born at the wrong time. Even after his death, he is always in pain and regrets. He cries every night. Wu Sihai paced and murmured. He suddenly turned around and said, The ghost general should be the Ghost King. If you are talking about him, I have heard of him. This ghost general seems to be the only well-known ghost king in the Wuxia cultivation world. You mean him? Do you have some friendship with the ghost general? Bai Zitsong and the others looked at Yu Qianqiu. The latter nodded and said, It seems that only he is known in the Wuxia cultivation world. I have some friendship with him and I have some evidence. I just don't know if you believe me. Wu Sihai raised his eyebrows. Then he calmed down and said calmly, Then you might as well say it first. It seems that if I don't tell you something, you will treat me as a liar. But let me make it clear in advance. There are some things that only the four families know. Don't tell it to anyone else. Otherwise, don't blame me for not warning you when you get into trouble. Yu Qianqiu warned him deliberately. Of course. Wu Sihai nodded repeatedly. His eyes had lit up because of his words. Maybe he could know some unknown secrets. People were born to be curious. Yu Qianqiu nodded slightly and said slowly, "This ghost general was a general who fought with the ancestors of the Li family in the previous dynasty. He was defeated and died. By chance he became a ghost cultivator. After his cultivation was successful, he gathered his old subordinates who died in the battle and gathered hundreds of thousands of ghost cultivators. Finally he became a ghost king of the monster ghost region. His original name is Meng Yan." "What? The ghost general is Meng Yan?" Wu Sihai suddenly lost his voice. Yu Qianqiu was stunned and said, "Why? You know him?" But in his heart he muttered, "That's impossible." Wu Sihai said in a deep voice, "In history there was indeed an iron-blooded general who fought with the Li clan's ancestors for the world. His name was Meng Yan. He was supposed to be the winner, but because the cultivation world intervened in the war, he died with a grudge. Haha. Your Fuxian Island is the culprit." Continue with what you said." "So it was history." Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes for free and continued, "Meng Yan had a beautiful concubine named Yu Ji. The two of them lived happily in the monster ghost region. I have a good relationship with the couple. When I was playing in the monster ghost region, they treated me warmly and gave me a ghost king token. Whether it is a demon or a ghost, they have to give me some face when they see this token. When I was playing in the monster ghost region, I avoided being disappointed by some small fries. That's the general relationship between me and Ghost General. As for whether I can make you believe me or not, I can't do anything about it." He said it casually, but they didn't know that it shocked them. This guy was actually playing in the monster ghost region that everyone in the cultivation world was afraid of. Was there any justice in this world? This sounded a little absurd, but the few of them firmly believed it because the story behind this fellow could not be judged by common sense. Wu Sihai swallowed his saliva and coughed. "Since Ghost General gave you a Ghost King token, I wonder if you can let me take a look. You have to know that the Wu clan is famous for their eyesight. We can tell whether it's real or fake with just one look." Not only him but even Bai Zitsong and the rest felt a little embarrassed. Who knew what the Ghost King token was? No matter how good the old man's eyesight was, he couldn't recognize it, right? The few of them could already guess what he was planning. "Old fox, I knew you would have your eyes on my token. You took the bait." Yu Qianqiu sneered in his heart. He scratched his head and said, "I don't even know if I have it with me. Let me take a look first." He reached into his storage bag and searched for a while. After a while he said, "Found it." A pitch-black token was raised in Yu Qianqiu's hand. There were some simple carvings around it, but in the middle was a pair of deep eyes. It was demonic and captivating. The few of them looked carefully and were immediately stunned. Their expressions gradually became sluggish. Their entire mind was filled with that pair of cold and demonic eyes. Following that, an awe-inspiring general wearing golden armor appeared in their minds and gradually matched the pair of eyes. The general's robe was fluttering behind him. He was holding a sword in his hand. He was staring at them indifferently as if he was looking at a group of ants. "Oh no. There's something strange about this token." Wu Sihai, who was in the middle stage of calamity passing, was shocked. He bit the tip of his tongue. The pain woke him up. As for Bai Zitsong and the other three, because their cultivation was not high, their minds were immersed in it and could not extricate themselves. The former blocked in front of the token and shouted, "Wake up!" Bai Zitsong and the rest who were mesmerized by the token trembled. They woke up as if they were in a dream. Their faces were filled with disbelief. "It really is the Ghost King's token." Wu Sihai turned around and asked, "Can I take a look?" "Old man, it's just a broken token. What's so special about it?" Yu Qianqiu generously gave it to him. "The Ghost King's token is a broken token?" Wu Sihai's face twitched. He took the token and examined it. He tried to avoid looking at the pair of eyes. After a long time he exhaled and praised, "Good stuff. This Ghost King's token is made of the rare nether iron. TSK. Normal ghost cultivators can't get their hands on this. It really belongs to the Ghost King." "What's nether iron?" Yu Qianqiu was stunned. It was his first time hearing about it. Wu Sihai held the token and explained, "Ghost cultivators and demon cultivators are different from us cultivators. They don't rely on absorbing spiritual energy to increase their cultivation. They rely on absorbing yin energy. Yin energy usually comes from underground caves. They are divided into 9 levels. The first level is the Nether Cave, the second level is the Nether Cave, and all the way up to the 9 Nether Cave. The higher the level of the cave, the stronger the Yin energy and the stronger the Yin wind. The 9 Nether Cave is the highest level. Even ghost cultivators at the end of the Ghost King can't withstand it. They will be killed by the Yin wind if they dare to enter. Under normal circumstances, ghost cultivators at the end of the Ghost King's cultivation can only stay in the 8 Nether Cave to absorb Yin energy. As for the 9 Nether Cave, only the legendary Ghost Sage dares to enter. The Ghost Sage's cultivation is equivalent to our legendary soul-forming stage. This Nether Iron is a treasure that can only be found in caves that are level 8 and above. Chapter 211. Compared to the mystic gold sand I bought last time, which one is better? Yuchencho asked. Mystic gold sand? Wuxia laughed. The two are not on the same level at all. Mystic gold sand can at most be used to refine treasures, while nether iron can be used to refine spiritual treasures. Which one do you think is better? Of course, no matter how good the item is, it needs the skill to refine it. This nether iron has the innate ability to absorb souls. The corpse sect of the demonic Tao has a magic weapon made of nether iron. They have captured many rogue cultivators and absorbed their souls. Those rogue cultivators are like walking corpses, which is why they are ranked 3rd in the demonic Tao. So that's how it is. Yu Qinsho muttered. Then the next time I meet Ghost General, I will ask him to help me get more nether iron. Although his voice was low, they all looked at each other. It seemed that this guy's relationship with Ghost General was not ordinary. Wu Sihai coughed and said, Yu Qinsho, can I discuss something with you? Here it comes. The old fox is finally showing his tail. Yu Qinsho sneered in his heart, but nodded on the surface and said, Just say it, old master. Since both demons and ghosts in the demon region have to show some respect when they see this token, and it is useless to keep it with you, why don't you lend it to the 4 families first? We will return it to you after we find the old ancestor. We will definitely thank you after that. What do you think? Wu Sihai said a little unnaturally. After a long time they finally got to the point. Bai Zitsong and the other 3 turned their heads to the side as if nothing had happened. In fact, if you paid attention you could see that they were a little embarrassed. Old master, that's a good idea. Yu Qinsho took the token from his hand and threw it directly into the storage bag. He smiled and said, It's not that I don't want to lend it to you, but this token is useful to me, but it is useless to you. Wu Sihai watched helplessly as the Ghost King token was taken away. He even had the urge to snatch it back. Suppressing his emotions, he frowned and asked, Why do you say that? When Meng Yan gave me the token he told me again and again not to give it to anyone else. If the 4 great clans go to the Demon Ghost region and flash the Ghost King token, I believe it won't take long for Meng Yan to find out. Once he finds out that the token is in your hands, he believed that Meng Yan's hundreds of thousands of troops were not just for show. At that time, in a fit of rage, Meng Yan has many experts under him. If old master thinks that the 4 great families can fight against Ghost General, I can let you try. What I'm afraid of is that this token won't be of any help to you. It would be bad if you end up attracting even more trouble. That fellow Meng Yan's temper wasn't good. There was also the Demon King Aoli who shared the same roots as him. Old master, I advise you to give up on this idea. Yu Qinsho shook his head and smiled. Wu Sihai was a little dumbfounded. He had calculated for a long time and thought that he was close. Who knew that his dream would be destroyed by Yu Qinsho? After a while he pretended to be nonchalant and asked, Who is the Demon King Aoli? One of the 10 great demon kings? Is his relationship with Ghost General good? Yu Qinsho nodded and said, Yes. He is one of the 10 great demon kings. He is the lord of a territory with Ghost General. The 2 of them are like brothers. One is in charge of Yang and the other is in charge of Yin. Ma Jiogu of Supporting Immortal Island was defeated by him. Even Ma Jiogu of Supporting Immortal Island, who is in the late tribulation passing stage, is no match for Demon King Aoli. Wu Sihai could no longer pretend and his face twitched. It should be known that Ma Jiogu was the #1 expert not only in supporting Immortal Island, but also in the entire Chinese cultivation world. Her Demon Slayer wand was rarely matched. Unexpectedly, she was defeated by a Demon King who is also in the late tribulation passing stage. The 10 great Demon Kings of the Devil Domain were indeed worthy of their reputation. Wu Sihai sighed softly and looked a little dispirited. One Ghost General was already difficult to deal with. Now there was Demon King Aoli and there were many Ghost King and Demon Kings. It seemed that even if he knew the whereabouts of the ancestor, it would be difficult to meet him again. Seeing him in a daze, Yu Qianzhou laughed inwardly, but he still put on a serious face and said, "Old master, you don't need to be discouraged. If you really want to go, at worst I'll accompany your 4 great families to the demon realm after I finish my business." Wu Sihai's eyes lit up and said, "Are you serious?" "What do you mean by serious?" Yu Qianzhou sneered and pointed at Bai Zizong's group of 4. He said, "I only made this trip because of my 4 brothers. Do you think I have nothing better to do after eating my fill?" Bai Zizong and the other 3 were delighted. They exchanged glances and cupped their fists to thank him. Wu Sihai said happily, "What do you want to do? Our 4 families may not be comparable to supporting Immortal Island, but we have some ability. Do you need our help?" "Sure." Yu Qianzhou touched his nose and said seriously, "Using the 4 families is making a mountain out of a molehill. It's enough with your Wu family's help. Old master, can you help me ask Yan Zhuixing of 100 Flower Palace where he got the 4 treasures of Xiaoshui?" Wu Sihai's smile froze on his face. After a while he said awkwardly, "It's not convenient for my Wu family to take action. Is there anything else that you need my Wu family's help with?" Yu Qianzhou waved his hand indifferently and said, "Forget it. I'll look for you when I have something else. Just don't shirk it again." Hee. "I'll help as long as I can." Wu Sihai smiled awkwardly. He felt that something was wrong no matter how he thought about it. It felt like he was being schemed against by Yu Qianzhou. "Then I hope that the next time I ask for your help will be within your scope." Yu Qianzhou's tone sounded like he didn't have any hope for the Wu family. The more they talked about it, the more embarrassed Wu Sihai felt. He immediately changed the topic and said, "Why do you want to know where the 4 treasures came from?" Yu Qianzhou squinted his eyes and didn't hide anything. He said in a deep voice, "There's a demon clan in the extreme north called the Snow Fox clan. Xiaoshui, who followed the divine craftsman in ancient times, was the first clan leader of the Snow Fox clan. The 4 treasures that the divine craftsman refined are the tokens of the Snow Fox clan's clan leader. I want to know how the treasures of the Snow Fox clan ended up in Yan Zhuixing's hands." "Xiaoshui is from the demon clan?" Wu Sihai was surprised. Bai Zizong and the other 3 looked at each other. Bai Zizong then asked, "The extreme north should be out of the Wuxia Empire's territory. How do you know about it?" "I just heard about it. I was once entrusted by someone and nearly forgot about it. I only recalled it last night and came to ask you about it." Yu Qianzhou casually said a few words and cupped his hands. "Let's not talk anymore. I will make a trip back to the 100 Flowers Valley first. I will come back to discuss with the 4 major clans about the trip to the demon region." "Wait. I have something to tell you." Wu Sihai stopped Jiang Yi and hesitated for a moment before speaking. "My Wu clan already knows about the Yu clan's matter in Swallow Zicheng. I believe the other factions will know soon too. I believe the supporting Immortal Island won't be an exception. There's also On Kwangtsung. I reckon they won't let you off so easily. You better be careful." Chapter 212. There was a short moment of silence in the secret room. Apart from the Wu clan's grandfather-grandson duo and Yu Qianzhou, Bai Zizong and the others were confused and didn't know what kind of riddle they were playing. Yu Qianzhou's thoughts were spinning rapidly. Even the Wu clan knew about his background, and the supporting Immortal Island naturally wouldn't be able to hide it from them. He sneered and said that Lu Changqing was courting death. He actually dared to extend his claws to my clansmen in the secular world. If I don't kill him, should I let him off? If it's a blessing, it won't be a calamity, and if it's a calamity, it can't be avoided. I hope that On Kwangtsung knows his place and doesn't provoke me again. If he angers me, I will remove On Kwangtsung's name from the cultivation world." His words contained traces of chilling intent, and everyone quivered. Bai Zizong, Tan Fei and Jing Zhuo looked at one another in dismay. On Kwangtsung's patriarch, Lu Changqing, was actually killed by him. They sighed silently and weren't worried about Yu Qianzhou. Instead they were worried for On Kwangtsung. On Kwangtsung's patriarch was killed, and he definitely wouldn't let Yu Qianzhou off. However, this fellow's background was truly unfathomable. Could On Kwangtsung win against him? "My Wu clan will send a few people to escort you to the 100 Flower Palace." Wu Sihai frowned and said. He was worried that if something happened to Yu Qianzhou, his 4 major clans' trip to the Demon Ghost region would be ruined. Yu Qianzhou waved his hand and said, "No need. On Kwangtsung can't do anything to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to stay in the cultivation world." Seeing that he was stubborn, they didn't say anything else and walked out of the secret room. When they walked to the entrance of the main hall, A Wu clan's disciple suddenly ran over and reported, "Clan head, Elder Dongfang Chang'ao of Supporting Immortal Island wants us to pass a message to Supporting Immortal Island's disciple Yu Qianqiu, asking him to return to Supporting Immortal Island's shop." Got it? Wu Sihai waved his hand and the disciple retreated. After confirming that Yu Qianqiu wanted to go back immediately, he cast a spell to the guards on the nearby tower, asking Wu Liqing and the other three to lead Yu Qianqiu and fly out on their flying swords. When the five of them arrived at Supporting Immortal Island's shop, Wang Yuan was waiting at the entrance, and he immediately brought them to the back of the shop. Dongfang Chang'ao was standing in the courtyard with his hands behind his back, and there were two other elders who came with him on both sides. Yu Qianqiu quickly bowed to the three of them, and Bai Zitsong and the other three bowed in turn and said, "The four major clans Bai Zitsong, Tan Fei Jingzhua, and Wu Liqing greet the three seniors." The elders on both sides held the armrests of the four of them, indicating that they didn't need to be overly courteous. At this moment, Dongfang Chang'ao turned around and looked at Yu Qianqiu and he said in a deep voice, "Yu Qianqiu, why do you have trouble wherever you go? The moment you arrived at the 100 Flowers Valley, you beat up sect leader Ong Kwangsung's grandson, and when you arrived at Hat Island, you beat up the Luo sect leader's son. Do you think that you haven't caused enough trouble for Supporting Immortal Island?" "Elder Dongfang, I was forced to do this. These two people really deserved a beating, and they were the ones who started it both times. I was just defending myself, otherwise I would have lost face for Supporting Immortal Island," Yu Qianqiu said with a little grievance. Bai Zitsong and the other three were stunned. How was this still the arrogant Yu Qianqiu? Wang Yuan didn't say a word. The other two elders looked at each other, and their lips curled into a smile. They were actually very satisfied with Yu Qianqiu's way of doing things. During this period of time, the whole cultivation world was talking about how this disciple of Supporting Immortal Island was doing, beating up this sect leader's son, and then beating up that sect leader's son. Good. He really made Supporting Immortal Island proud. "I won't talk about the past. Tell me honestly, did you get into trouble again?" Dongfang Chang'ao stared at him and asked. Yu Qianqiu scratched his head and said, "No. I have been staying in the Wu clan, and apart from beating up that Luo Xiaohan, I didn't do anything else." "Then why did Ong Kwangsung's old ancestor Qing Nu personally come to Supporting Immortal Island to look for you, and even made the sect leader send a message to bring you back to Supporting Immortal Island immediately?" Dongfang Chang'ao shouted. It was exposed. Bai Zitsong and the other three secretly exchanged glances. Yu Qianqiu was stunned and he said, "Ong Kwangsung's old ancestor Qing Nu? I don't even know him, why is he looking for me?" He thought to himself, "I have never heard of this person in Ong Kwangsung. Am I asking you or are you asking me?" Dongfang Chang'ao shouted again. Yu Qianqiu said with a bitter face, "Elder Dongfang, I am innocent. These few days I have been following the four major clan successors closely, and I didn't do anything. If you don't believe me, you can ask them." Bai Zitsong and the other three nodded, and they immediately cupped their fists in unison and said, "Elder Dongfang, the four of us can testify for Brother Yu. These few days he really didn't do anything out of line." The successors of the four major clans still had some weight. Dongfang Chang'ao looked at them, stood there for a moment and said in a deep voice, "Follow me back to Supporting Immortal Island first, we can talk about anything else when we get back." An elder at the side took out a flying artifact that looked like a small boat, and Yu Qianqiu obediently jumped onto it under everyone's gaze. After Dongfang Chang'ao and the other two got on the boat, the small boat turned into a stream of light and flew away, leaving the people in the courtyard to send them off. Riding the wind, breaking through the clouds, they flew across the sky. Yu Qianqiu sat alone at the end thinking about how to explain when he got back. Ong Kwangsung's old ancestor Qing Nu came to Supporting Immortal Island. Needless to say, Lu Changqing's matter was exposed. So, looks like the matter of finding Yan Zhuixing will have to be postponed. When they returned to Supporting Immortal Island, the small boat directly landed in front of Penglai Pavilion and they got off. Dongfang Chang'ao led him upstairs and the other two didn't follow. They didn't go to the sect master's room, but to a large room that was used to receive guests. As soon as they entered, Yu Qianqiu realized that the atmosphere inside was a little strange, and he secretly thought that something was wrong. After Dongfang Chang'ao reported to the sect master, he also bowed to everyone. When he retreated to the side, the room was full of familiar people, including Master Guan Weiwu and Ferdinand. The two of them looked at him with a strange expression, but he didn't see a tall, white-haired old man in a green robe. He was standing beside sect master Feng Xiangtian, sizing him up. He must be An Kuangsung's old ancestor. Qing Nu. Feng Xiangtian frowned and said, "Yu Qianqiu, do you know your mistake?" "I know my mistake." Yu Qianqiu hurriedly bowed. Everyone in the room was stunned, but they heard him say, "Disciple shouldn't have caused trouble outside and brought trouble to the sect. Sect master, please give disciple another chance. Disciple will definitely change for the better." "So, did you really kill An Kuangsung sect master Lu Changqing?" Feng Xiangtian said in a deep voice. Dongfang Chang'eo was shocked. He suspected that Yu Qianqiu had caused trouble again, but he didn't expect that he killed An Kuangsung sect master. How was that possible? "I killed An Kuangsung sect master?" Yu Qianqiu was stunned and he said after a long time, "Sect master, did I hear it wrong? Did you say that I killed An Kuangsung sect master?" "Isn't that so?" Feng Xiangtian scoffed. "The matter has been investigated clearly and you still want to quibble? Sect master, you must be mistaken. How could I kill An Kuangsung sect master?" Yu Qianqiu argued. Chapter 213. Feng Xiangtian said in a deep voice, "Looks like you're going to resist till the end and refuse to admit it?" Yu Qianqiu stood there with a wronged look and didn't say a word. It was as if he didn't do it. How could he admit it? "You were originally a disciple of An Kuangsung. Why did you join Fuxian Island? But what are your intentions?" Feng Xiangtian shouted. Although he said that, he couldn't bear it in his heart. Such a rare and good seedling was going to be destroyed here. Damn it. I'm exposed. Yu Qianqiu didn't reply to him. Instead he turned around and bowed deeply to Guan Weiwu. With a distressed expression he said, "This disciple was originally a commoner in the mortal world. My family was quite wealthy, and I originally wanted to live a carefree life. Fortunately my ancestors saved An Kuangsung sect master Lu Changqing. In order to repay the kindness, Lu Changqing brought me to An Kuangsung to cultivate even though I didn't have a spiritual root to cultivate. Then I became master and disciple with sect master Hao Sansi. Under the encouragement of my master, this disciple concentrated on training day and night, not daring to slack off for even a day. Perhaps it was heaven rewarding the diligent. I was a disciple of the Azure Light sect who had no spiritual roots and was humiliated by my fellow disciples. One day I was enlightened and stepped into the refining chi stage. This should have been a happy event, but who would have thought that my master would warn me not to reveal a bit of my cultivation in front of others? At that time this disciple didn't understand. Later, because my master was attacked and died, I was so angry that I exchanged a palm strike with the head's grandson Lu Zhengguang and revealed my cultivation. Afterwards, I understood why my master repeatedly warned me not to reveal my cultivation." Yu Qianqiu looked at everyone and bowed to Guan Weiwu again. "Sect master, Lu Changqing kept sending elders to ask me to reveal my cultivation secrets. But how could I have any cultivation secrets? I only know how to make up for my lack of cultivation with diligence. Because of this, I was demoted to a spirit stone mine to do hard labor. It was only a day after my master passed away. They couldn't wait any longer. So be it if you have to do hard labor. But the sect leader didn't want to let me go. He sent Elder Lu Wanqian to threaten and bribe me. I almost died in his hands several times, but I didn't know any cultivation secrets. How could I tell him? Then one day the Magic Illusion Palace attacked the Spirit Stone Mine. The dignified elder of the An Kuangsung, Lu Wanwan, used me as a shield in order to escape. Fortunately this disciple was lucky enough to survive. Looking at the whole Spirit Stone Mine, I was disheartened and didn't think about cultivation anymore. So I left quietly, thinking that it was just a nightmare and that I never came to An Kuangsung." Everyone from the supporting Immortals Island sighed. It turned out that Yu Qianqiu had such a miserable experience. Imagine a disciple without spiritual roots suddenly being able to cultivate. Some sects would indeed use all kinds of means. Who would have thought that Yu Qianqiu was an exception with extraordinary talent? However, a dignified righteous sect actually did such a thing to their own disciple. Anyone would be disappointed and leave An Kuangsung just like that. Everyone glanced at the green-robed elder and couldn't help but reveal a trace of disdain. When Qing Nu, who was beside Feng Xiangtian, heard Yu Qianqiu's words, a few of his white beards were already broken. He cupped his hands at everyone and sighed, "I won't hide my shame. I also heard about this matter after the incident. It was indeed those evil disciples who were devoid of conscience and did the wrong thing first. So, let's not talk about the sect's misfortune. How shameful." These words undoubtedly proved that Yu Qianzhou's words were true, and everyone felt even more sympathy for Yu Qianzhou from the bottom of their hearts. Especially the Cultivation Pavilion's principal elder, Wuxia. He thought to himself, An Kuang-tsung didn't want such an outstanding disciple. Now that he has entered my Supporting Immortals Island, he is my Supporting Immortals Island's disciple. How dare you, Emir An Kuang-tsung, come to my Supporting Immortals Island to ask for him? This is outrageous. He had been thinking about how to get Yu Qianzhou into his cultivation pavilion. Brother Qing, don't blame yourself. Feng Xiangtian calmly comforted him. He faced Yu Qianzhou and said in a deep voice, where did you get the Supporting Immortals token from back then? Yu Qianzhou still didn't answer him directly. Instead, he bowed to Guan Weiwu, causing everyone to frown. He was clearly not putting the sect master in his eyes. Feng Xiangtian was expressionless. The former bowed and said, after leaving An Kuang-tsung, I wandered around. Once, I met an injured Qi refinement stage cultivator who was on the verge of death. Unfortunately, I couldn't save him no matter how hard I tried. Before he died, he said that he was originally a disciple expelled by Supporting Immortals Island. His name was Ji Wushuang. He gave me a token to repay my kindness and said that I could join Supporting Immortals Island with this token. I originally gave up on the idea of cultivating, but when I heard that it was the world's largest sect, I couldn't help but want to give it a try. In the end, I became a disciple of Supporting Immortals Island. Ji Wushuang? Feng Xiangtian frowned. He looked around and asked, is there a disciple called Ji Wushuang among the expelled disciples? Osihai suddenly sighed and said, Sect Master Yu Qianzhou is right. There was a disciple who was expelled from the sect called Ji Wushuang. He was a disciple of the Cultivation Pavilion. He was the grandson of the late Elder Ji. His father died in battle for Supporting Immortals Island. I didn't expect. Elder Ji's grandson? 3 generations of his grandfather and grandson are all dead? Feng Xiangtian paused. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Their expressions were a bit sad. The disciples who were expelled from the sect didn't have a good ending. They didn't think that even the grandson of a dignified elder of the Cultivation Pavilion would end up like this. The elders who were able to hold the immortal supporting medallion were all senior elders. Feng Xiangtian came back to his senses and shouted, why did you kill Sect Master An Kuang-tsung? I didn't kill him. Yu Qianzhou kept staring at Guan Weiwu, who felt uncomfortable under his gaze. You won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. Feng Xiangtian snorted. At first he wanted to protect Guan Weiwu. After all, talents were rare. However, Guan Weiwu had repeatedly looked down on him and even dared to deceive him. How could he put his face as the sect master? He was simply courting death. Feng Xiangtian shouted towards the outside, bring him in. 2 disciples pushed a person in. As soon as the person came in, he immediately knelt down and kowtowed to everyone. Trembling, he said, great immortals, Yu Qianzhou didn't even look at that person. He only stared at his master, Guan Weiwu. Feng Xiangtian pointed at Yu Qianzhou and shouted to that person, come forward. See if he is the person who released those flying swords that night. Yes. That person scrambled over. When he looked back, he immediately cried out in joy, eldest young master. Then he nodded to Feng Xiangtian and said, that night, it was my eldest young master who released those flying swords and fought with the evil person who destroyed my Yu clan. Yu Qianzhou was slightly stunned. He looked down and saw that the person looked familiar, but he couldn't remember his name. He then looked at the clothes he was wearing. It was the uniform of the Yu residence's servants. He couldn't help but shake his head with a bitter smile. What else could he say? Feng Xiangtian said with an expressionless face, Yu Qianzhou, what else do you have to say? Yu Qianzhou didn't answer. He looked at Guan Weiwu and said with a faint smile, Master, could it be that you have nothing to say? When he said that, his heart turned cold. He said those words to Guan Weiwu because he wanted to tell Guan Weiwu about his difficulties and hoped that Master could understand. But as his master, Guan Weiwu actually didn't say a word for him. He didn't have any intention of protecting him. Could it be that the relationship between the two of them was so bad in the past? Since things had come to this, was there a need to stay on Fushin Island? The smile on Yu Qianzhou's face gradually faded. He slowly closed his eyes. Seeing his disciple like this, a look of pain flashed across Guan Weiwu's face. It wasn't that he didn't want to speak for his disciple. In fact, after he knew about this matter, he immediately went to find his senior brother, hoping that his senior brother would show mercy. But the latter immediately scolded him, saying that this matter involved other sects, and whether it was fair or not was related to the reputation of Fuxian Island. He sternly warned him that as Yu Qianzhou's master, he shouldn't intervene in this matter. He knew how to deal with it. Ferdinand was also warned. Yu Qianzhou suddenly opened his eyes. His face was full of coldness. Suddenly he knelt down in front of Guan Weiwu and kowtowed 3 times in a row. After standing up, he brushed the hem of his gown with one hand and pulled it with both hands. With a hiss sound, the front hem of the gown was torn off on the spot. He pinched it with one hand and slowly raised it towards everyone. Everyone was stunned. They didn't know what he meant. He raised the torn hem of the gown and shouted in a deep voice, "Master, once this gown is torn, you and I are no longer friends. We don't owe each other anything. From now on, I, Yu Qianzhou, have nothing to do with Fuxian Island. From now on, I, Yu Qianzhou, am free to fly in the sky and fish in the sea. No one can control me, Yu Qianzhou." Chapter 214. How dare you? Osihai shouted. The good seedling that he coveted for a long time actually said such disgraceful words. He really didn't want to stay on supporting Xian Island anymore. Feng Xiangqian's face turned frighteningly gloomy. Since the establishment of supporting Xian Island, it had always been the sects that expelled their disciples. When had there ever been a case of a disciple abandoning the sect? Guan Weiwu and Ferdinand were already stunned. The group of elders was a little dumbfounded. The 2 disciples who had just escorted the person and looked at each other. Qingnu was also a little stunned. This Yu Qianzhou was really courageous to publicly break off relations with the world's #1 sect, supporting Xian Island. In the entire cultivation world, how many people would dare to do such a thing? What a pity. Such a person would probably not be able to escape today. Yu Qianzhou, it's not too late to take back what you said just now. Otherwise you will be in big trouble. Osihai warned sternly again. He really didn't want Yu Qianzhou to be destroyed just like this. In fact, he was already trying his best to protect Yu Qianzhou. Feng Xiangqian's face was gloomy. He raised his hand and pressed down on Osihai, signaling him to stop talking. However, he didn't know that Yu Qianzhou had already made up his mind. His initial respectful look was already gone. He straightened his back and shook his head indifferently. Spilled water can't be retrieved. The words that I, Yu Qianzhou, said are like spilled water. There's no way to take them back. Spilled water can't be retrieved. Feng Xiangqian looked around and sneered. I announce that from today onwards, Yu Qianzhou will be expelled from supporting Xian Island. His life or death has nothing to do with supporting Xian Island anymore. Foreign Affairs Palace immediately spread the news to the entire cultivation world. He turned around and said to Qing Nu beside him, Brother Qing, I'm sorry. From today onwards, the grudge between you, Ong Kwang-tsung, and the Luo sect has nothing to do with Fuxian Island. We won't interfere in this matter anymore. This meant that the supporting Immortal Island had completely abandoned Yu Qianzhou. From now on, Yu Qianzhou would have to bear all the troubles he caused by himself. The supporting Immortal Island would never stand up for him again. How could a core formation disciple survive against the Luo sect and Ong Kwang-tsung? This was a disguised form of punishment. Ferdinand shook his head and sighed while Guan Weiwu's face turned pale. This. Qing Nu also didn't come back to her senses for a while. How did things turn out like this in the blink of an eye? He had always guessed that Lu Changqing's death had something to do with supporting Immortal Island. Otherwise, where did those men in black come from? This matter had always troubled the upper echelons of Ong Kwang-tsung. They couldn't afford to offend them, but they had to deal with it. However, from what happened just now, if supporting Immortal Island wasn't deliberately putting on a show, then this matter really had nothing to do with supporting Immortal Island. Qing Nu thought about it again and again. She stared at Yu Qianzhou and said in a deep voice, Yu Qianzhou, is my Ong Kwang-tsung sect's treasure, the green destiny sword, in your hands? If it's in your hands, you should return it to me. Return what? It was destroyed along with that broken horsetail whisk. Yu Qianzhou sneered and said, even if the 2 treasures weren't destroyed, do you think I would return them to you? The dignified sect leader Ong Kwang-tsung actually tried to kill my family members in the secular world. Moreover, they were the descendants of his savior. Only you people would do such a thing. Now you still have the cheek to ask me for the green destiny sword? Is there something wrong with your brain? Everyone was speechless. This Yu Qianzhou didn't even care about old ancestor Qing Nu, who was famous in the cultivation world. He was really arrogant. It seemed like it wasn't strange that he could continuously beat people up. What? The green destiny sword was destroyed? Qing Nu's expression was a little twitching. She had seen the horsetail whisk that was destroyed, so she was afraid that he was telling the truth. Suppressing the anger in her heart, Qing Nu said in a deep voice, An Kuang-tsung let you down first. Logically, I shouldn't pursue this matter. However, you killed my An Kuang-tsung sect leader. Whether you are willing or not, I will imprison you in An Kuang-tsung for 100 years. Also, who are those black-clothed people? You want to imprison me for 100 years? Dream on. Yu Qianqiu said in disdain. Qing Nu hadn't been humiliated like this for many years. She immediately had the intention to fight. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand at her and smiled. Wait. If he had anything to ask or to fight, he would have to leave the Supporting Immortal Island first. We aren't people of Supporting Immortal Island. Fighting in their territory is not giving them face. All right. As you wish. Qing Nu was really angry. This kid was too arrogant. If she didn't teach him a lesson, she would be letting herself down. She immediately cupped her fists at Feng Xiangtian and said, Sect Leader Feng, please open the island's protective array and let us out. Feng Xiangtian nodded and flicked a white light out of the window. That white light flew into the sky. Old man, come out and reason with me. Yu Qianqiu shouted at Qing Nu. He jumped out of the window and did a somersault in the air. The sword on his back was unsheathed and drew a semicircle, carrying him into the sky. Sect Leader Feng, sorry to disturb you. Qing Nu cupped her fists and flew out of the window. However, with her cultivation at the end of the tribulation stage, she naturally didn't need to play such low-level tricks like sword kinesis. She turned into a shadow and chased after Yu Qianqiu, who had become a black dot in the sky. Let's go and take a look. After getting Feng Xiangtian's approval, several figures flew out of the window. Swoosh. Hearing the whistling sound coming from below, Yu Qianqiu looked down and was speechless. This tribulation stage expert is really an expert. Flying in the air is faster than me flying on my sword. When he looked back and saw a white cloud above him, he immediately raised his cultivation to the limit and flew into it. Wanna run? Qing Nu, who was flying over, sneered in his heart when he saw the situation above him. His silhouette could still be seen, but as he smiled, he suddenly vanished into thin air. He had used teleportation, and when he reappeared he was already at the edge of the white cloud high up in the sky. Yu Qianqiu had just managed to jump in before him. When Qing Nu saw him hiding inside, she did not chase after him. Instead, she flew directly to the top of the cloud. Looking around, this cloud was only 100 meters in radius. Immediately, she released a divine sense to scan the entire cloud. After a while, Qing Nu's face changed. Her divine sense went back and forth several times, but she didn't find the person inside. How could this be? With his cultivation, as long as his body moved slightly, it was impossible that her divine sense couldn't find him. At this time, O Sihai and Dongfang Chang'eo also quickly came to his side and floated together in the air. Seeing his bad expression, O Sihai said, Senior Qing, what's wrong? That guy is gone. Qing Nu said with a strange expression. The people who came later looked at each other. How could this be? With Qing Nu's cultivation at the end of the tribulation stage, how could Yu Qianqiu escape? O Sihai was stunned and said, Impossible. With Yu Qianqiu's cultivation, how could he escape from Senior's hands? Even I don't think I can do it. No, I clearly saw him come in and he should still be inside. How could I not find him? This guy is a little strange. After Qing Nu finished speaking, her divine sense swept back and forth again. O Sihai and the others also released their divine sense to check, but they still found nothing. I don't believe that this guy can escape under my eyes. You guys back off. After Qing Nu let them back a little, a long sword suddenly appeared in her hand. She raised it towards the sky and shouted, Green Sky Sword Art. The long sword in her hand emitted a green sword shadow that was nearly 100 meters long. It pierced the sky and suddenly radiated an imposing aura that spread out, causing the clothes of the people not far away to flutter. It was very dexterous. They exchanged glances. Who? The old guy lost his face, the huge sword got angry and wanted to kill. As her hand moved in Qing Nu's hand suddenly moved, the whole white cloud was stirred up like a tornado, and gradually dissipated in the air. Until all the white clouds disappeared without a trace, Qing Nu put away the sword in her hand and threw it back into the storage bag. But in front of her there was no one. Chapter 215. They looked around, but it was obvious that Yu Qianqiu had run away. A core formation realm disciple had escaped from a cultivator in the final stage of the tribulation passing stage. He had disappeared without a trace and it was inexplicable. Qing Nu, who was floating in the air, had an ugly expression. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that this was her humiliation. Did Yu Qianzhou leave supporting Immortal Island just like that? Osihai groaned in pain from the bottom of his heart. He was really optimistic about Yu Qianzhou's potential. Especially everything that had happened now, it made him sigh endlessly. At such a young age, Yu Qianzhou already had such means. However, everything was impossible now. Yu Qianzhou had really left. They flew to Qing Nu's side and Osihai asked superfluously, "Senior, did Yu Qianzhou run away?" Qing Nu looked around with a gloomy expression. There were only a few clouds in the blue sky, and below them was a vast sea. With Yu Qianzhou's cultivation, where could he run to? Could it be? He stared at supporting Immortal Island, which was shrouded in mist. Osihai understood what he meant and he said in astonishment, "Senior, do you suspect that he went back to supporting Immortal Island? That's impossible. When we just came out, the island's protective formation sealed supporting Immortal Island again. He can't go back. Why don't Senior go back to supporting Immortal Island to look for him?" Qing Nu did have that thought, but even if Yu Qianzhou went back to hide, what right did he have to search supporting Immortal Island? He pondered for a moment, shook his head and said, "There's no need. There's still a long way to go. I don't believe that this brat will never show himself in the cultivation world. Please bid farewell to sect leader Feng on my behalf. I won't go down anymore." With that said, he flew away without looking back, disappearing into the distance in the blink of an eye. The few of them sent him off with their gazes before exchanging glances. All of them shook their heads and smiled bitterly. They then sized up the surroundings under the clear sky and bright sun. Such a bright and clear world was disturbed by Yu Qianzhou like this, and it seemed rather strange. "Let's go back." Osihai sighed as the few of them dived towards Fuxin Island. After returning to Penglai Pavilion, Osihai told Feng Xiangtian and others in detail what happened just now. Everyone was stunned and surprised. Qing Nu, who had the cultivation of the final phase of nature's test, didn't catch Yu Qianzhou and let him run away? Guan Weiwu and Ferdinand looked at each other and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. In the main hall of the Wanfen Garden, Ma Jiugu, who was holding a walking stick, was standing in the middle of the hall with Lan Bingshu as support. She was looking at Hibiscus, who was sitting motionlessly on a chair. Tears were silently rolling down Hibiscus's beautiful face. Obviously she was restrained. Lan Bingxue looked at the face that was even more beautiful than hers, and her expression was indescribable. After the banquet was over, Ferdinand angrily returned and greeted Ma Jiugu, "Jiugu." There was quite a commotion above supporting Immortal Island just now. What? Could it be that Qing Nu, that old fellow, had made a move on Yu Qianzhou? What happened? Ma Jiugu turned around and asked. Hibiscus, who couldn't move, looked at her father anxiously. "Yu Qianzhou. That brat was a bit impulsive. At first, the sect leader didn't plan to do anything to him. He just wanted to put on a show in front of Qing Nu, who knew that when he saw that his master didn't say anything to help him, he actually cut ties with Guan Weiwu in front of everyone. Their master-disciple relationship ended there. The sect leader was also angry and expelled him from the supporting Immortal Island in public. It's funny that Qing Nu chased Yu Qianzhou to the outside of the supporting Immortal Island. In the end, with Qing Nu's cultivation of the final phase of nature's test, she couldn't catch Yu Qianzhou and let him escape. I really don't know how that brat has such ability. It's really incredible. Ferdinand shook his head and smiled bitterly. That old fellow Qing Nu didn't catch Yu Qianzhou? Ma Jiugu was stunned. Lan Bingxue was also shocked. Hearing this, Hibiscus, who had tears in her eyes, immediately relaxed. Her large eyes flickered. Others might not know, but she knew that Yu Qianzhou had the ability to appear and disappear unpredictably. It was normal that others couldn't catch him. He escaped, but from now on he is no longer a disciple of supporting Immortal Island. Without the protection of supporting Immortal Island, the Luo sect and An Kuang-tsung will definitely not let him go. Jiugu, why didn't you come forward to persuade the sect leader? I believe that if you had come forward, this matter wouldn't have escalated to this point, Ferdinand asked. I'm old and a little muddle-headed. I never interfere with the decisions of the supporting Immortal Island. Ma Jiugu turned around and stared at Hibiscus and asked, I heard that your girl's face was cured by Yu Qianzhou? Yes. Ferdinand nodded and said, this disciple will not hide it from you. Yu Qianzhou went to the demon domain and got a lot of spirit grasses. He secretly hid them and didn't hand them over. Instead, he secretly refined a furnace of Rui Dan for Rong. Just like that, Ronger's face was cured. Rui pill? Even Ma Jiugu couldn't help but exclaim, Is it the legendary Rui pill that can keep youthful, detoxify, nourish one's face and make one immune to hundreds of poisons? According to Yu Qianshou, it should be. You didn't see the appearance of the Rui pill at that time. Not only did it give off a pill halo, but it also emitted 7 colored rays of light. It was the first time in my life that I saw such a pill. It was an eye-opener. Ferdinand sighed. Hearing this, Lan Bingxue looked at Hibiscus with an envious expression. Which woman didn't want to stay youthful? Your girl is so lucky. Sigh. If I had encountered such a pill in the past, I wouldn't have gotten the name Ma Jiogu. Last Lan, let's go. Let's not look at it lest we get envious. Let's go. Let's go. Ma Jiogu shook her head and sighed. She slowly walked out with Lan Bingshue's help. When Yu Qianshou was being chased by Qing Nu and was about to enter the cloud, he was scared out of his wits when he looked back. The other party actually teleported in front of him. As soon as he entered the cloud, he immediately flashed back to Utopia without saying anything. He didn't dare to be long-winded. A cultivator at the final stage of the crossing calamity stage was simply too terrifying for him. The reason why he disappeared into the cloud was that he didn't want to expose the secret that he could disappear into thin air. Who knew that he would almost be killed? After appearing in Bai Sujin's room in the Misty Palace, he finally felt safe. He breathed a sigh of relief and wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. Bai Sujin suddenly looked back. Seeing him like this, she walked up to him and asked with concern, "What's wrong? Damn it. I'm so unlucky today. I was just expelled from the Supporting Immortals Island, and now I'm being chased by a cultivator at the final stage of the crossing calamity stage by Ang Kwangtsung. Just a little bit more. If he had killed me before I could react, I might not have been able to come back. I was so scared." Yu Qianshou said in a relaxed manner after the fright. You were expelled from the Supporting Immortals Island? Why would a cultivator from Ang Kwangtsung want to kill you? Is it because you helped me investigate the 4 treasures? Bai Sujin grabbed his arm. Especially when she saw the long hem of his robe. He was naked behind his buttocks and his legs were exposed in front. Who knew what kind of danger he had encountered? Yu Qianshou gently pressed her hand and said with a smile, "Sister, don't think too much. It's not your fault. It's my fault." Bai Sujin, on the other hand, didn't think so. She only thought that he was comforting her. She bit her lips and said, "I can take my time with my matters. You must pay attention to your safety outside." In her heart, there was nothing more important than Yu Qianshou's safety. Yu Qianshou shook his head and smiled bitterly, "I'm afraid it's too late now. I believe it won't take long for the whole cultivation world to know that I was expelled from the Supporting Immortals Island. At that time, I'm afraid that the Daluo sect and Ang Kwangtsung will cast their net to find me. It's not convenient for me to show myself in public for a while." Then you shouldn't go out during this period of time. Bai Sujin's peerless features gently lifted as she looked at him worriedly. Yu Qianshou was a little dazed. He had the urge to hug and kiss her. Just when he was thinking about it, his divine sense suddenly fluctuated. Someone was looking for him. Yu Qianshou was surprised and said, "It's news from the Pillar of General's office. Could it be that there's an improvement in the mission that I gave to little Tian? Sister, I have something to do. I'll go out for a while." As soon as he finished speaking, he took off his long robe and put it on. Then he disappeared without a trace. Bai Sujin bent down to pick up the torn clothes on the ground and held them in her hands. Her pretty face was filled with worry, Chapter 216. The rear garden of the National Pillars Mansion had become a forbidden area. Actually, there was nothing they could do about it. At this time there were many people in the rear garden. There were adults and children, and all of them were dressed shabbily. None of them were presentable, and they all looked at the surrounding courtyard with fear. No one dared to make a sound, and there were probably more than 100 people. These people were brought here by Ling Feng and the others while they were cultivating in the capital. Nowadays, the three of them could be said to be living a comfortable life. They cultivated in peace, and with the nourishment of spirit stones and spirit pills, their cultivation was rising rapidly. In the past, it was something they didn't even dare to think about. They didn't have to worry about food and drink, and there was no one to restrict them. They also had the money Shi Xiaotian gave them to spend. Although they couldn't normally appear in the general's mansion, they would climb over the wall and stroll around the capital when they were free. The three of them did not dare to neglect the task that Yu Qianqiu had entrusted them with. The purpose of their stroll was to find people with spirit roots for cultivation. Shi Xiaotian looked at the group of people in the rear garden and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What kind of people did Ling Feng and the others bring here? Most of them looked like beggars, or they looked like they were in dire straits. Some of them had eaten their fill and were squatting in the shade of a tree, scratching lice. On the wall of the small courtyard, Ling Feng and the others sat side by side, while Shi Xiaotian stood on it. The four of them looked at the group of people in the garden. Shi Xiaotian smiled bitterly and said, "Ling Feng, did you bring all the beggars in the capital here?" Beizi looked up at him and smiled. "If the three of us really brought all the beggars in the capital here, even 10 of your generals' mansions wouldn't be able to accommodate them, let alone this garden. We also want to bring some decent people for boss, but boss already told us to keep a low profile. If we brought so many ordinary people here, I'm afraid that the government would have long been alerted and people would have noticed. Look at these beggars and vagrants, they don't have families and they're all alone. Without them, no one in the capital would know." Shi Xiaotian waved his finger and said, "But look, why did you bring even old men here? What does boss want them for?" "That's good. At least they won't starve to death on the streets." It was rare for Xian Ping to say such a long sentence. Ling Feng nodded and said, "Boss said that as long as they don't belong to any sect and have spiritual roots, regardless of age, the more the better. So, let's wait for the boss to get here first." Shi Xiaotian shook his head and raised a small silver ball in his hand. He asked doubtfully, "I just used my divine sense to check inside and found that it's empty. Can this really summon boss?" "It should be possible. Otherwise, boss wouldn't have given this to us for no reason," Ling Feng said. Shi Xiaotian looked at the silver ball in his hand and smiled bitterly. "I hope boss can take them away as soon as possible. Otherwise, there will be hundreds of people eating every day." "What? Your Grand General's residence can't even support 100 people?" Yu Qianqiu suddenly appeared on top of the wall and laughed. "Boss." The few of them turned around and exclaimed in surprise. After Shi Xiaotian's joy, he smiled awkwardly and said, "Boss, that's not what I meant. It's just that my father is about to return to the imperial court. I'm afraid it will arouse my father's suspicion. I don't know how to explain it to him." Yu Qianqiu looked at the hundreds of people and nodded slightly. They were all people with spiritual roots. He didn't expect Ling Feng and the other two to be able to gather so many people in such a short period of time. However, he was stunned when he saw a few old people among them. "Let's talk inside." Yu Qianqiu directly entered the courtyard from the top of the wall. After the four of them entered the main hall, Yu Qianqiu sat on a chair in the main hall and asked curiously, "The pillar of the state general has been fighting at the borders for many years. Why is he suddenly returning to the imperial court?" Shi Xiaotian smiled and said, "It's nothing. The Pingwu general has 2 beautiful daughters. The eldest is going to marry the current crown prince, and the second is going to marry the eldest son of the Weigua general. My father, the Pingwu general, and the Weigua general are the 3 great generals of the empire. Maybe it's because of this that my father has to come personally to congratulate them. An important official with an important official, and an important official with the crown prince?" Yu Qianqiu's brows twitched. He seemed to feel that something wasn't right. He frowned and said, "Xiaonan, among the 3 great generals of the empire, who has the greatest military power? It's not a matter of who has the greatest military power. The 3 great generals control 6 million soldiers and horses, and there isn't much of a difference in power. If we're talking about military power, I'm afraid it's still my father," Shi Xiaotian said with a hint of pride. "What?" Yu Qianqiu asked. Shi Xiaotian raised his hand and gestured, "The south of the Wuxia Empire is a barren land that is rarely visited by humans. In the words of our cultivation world, it's called the demonic domain. The east side, Linhai, has always been guarded by the troops of the Wuxia General. The Pingwa General's troops are mainly guarding the capital region, as well as the northern border. My father, the pillar of the state general, is guarding the west. The east side, Linhai, has no neighbors. The south is barren, and although it's dangerous, there are no wars. Although there's a big country in the north, they're located in a bitter cold land. In terms of strength, they can't compare to our empire. Only the west that my father guards is not only vast, but it's also connected to the 6 countries. Ever since our empire was founded, the 6 countries have never stopped having conflicts, big or small. Think about it, boss. For so many years, the troops in the east, south, and north have been preparing for war all year round. On the other hand, the west that my father guards is always preparing for war. Therefore, among the 3 great generals of the empire, my father's troops are the strongest. Oh, so that's how it is. Yu Qianqiu had always been in the cultivation world, so he really didn't know much about these things. After a moment of silence, he asked again, "Then what about the defense of the West when your father returns to the capital? Isn't he worried at all?" "Ah, boss, you don't know." Shi Xiaotian laughed. "Last year, the 6 countries attacked our empire together, instantly angering my father. My father immediately issued a death order. With a single command, his 2 million troops split into 6 groups and defeated the 6 countries one by one, causing them to suffer great losses. In the end, the 6 countries sued for peace. At the beginning of this year, they signed an inviolable treaty with our Wuxia Empire. That's why my father can return to the capital with peace of mind. As for the defense of the West, my father has already handed it over to my second brother. Second brother has grown up under my father's guidance. I believe that it won't be a problem for him to guard the West." "Oh, that means that there's no war in the West for now?" Yu Qianqiu asked. Shi Xiaotian laughed. "The 6 countries have suffered great losses. Even if they want to cause trouble, it'll be impossible for them to do so in the next decade or so." Seeing the proud look on Shi Xiaotian's face, Yu Qianqiu didn't ask him anything else. However, in his heart he was grumbling. There was no war at the border, but the Shi family controlled the strongest troops of the Wuxia Empire. A single army was able to defeat the armies of the 6 countries at the same time. One could imagine the battle prowess of this army. Some people probably couldn't sit still anymore. Look, they even brought up the matter of an alliance marriage. Chapter 217. Ling Feng walked over and said, "Boss, I, Beizi, and Xian Ping found the people in the garden. Although they don't have much aptitude, they still have some spiritual roots. I wonder if they can be used?" Yu Qianqiu came back to his senses and smiled. "It's fine as long as they have spiritual roots. How can there be so many people with good aptitude? Those with good aptitude have already been taken away by the major sections. You guys won't even have the chance to find them. But why did you bring the old man here?" Shi Xiaotian glanced at the 3 of them and laughed in his heart. Ling Feng was startled and said, "Boss, didn't you say it's better to have more people regardless of age?" "Did I say that?" Yu Qianqiu was stunned and immediately came to a realization. "Oh, I think I did say that before. Forget it, it's better than nothing. We can bring them back to cultivate and they'll be stronger than ordinary people. With so many people, we'll be worried about our food supply. It's better to bring them back and not do anything else. We can be self-sufficient. By the way, little Tian, when you have time, help me gather some grains and seeds of all kinds of fruits and vegetables. I have great use for them." The 3 of them didn't know what he was going to do. Shi Xiaotian nodded and agreed. Yu Qianqiu instructed again, "Ling Feng, Beizi, and Xian Ping, continue to search for people with spiritual roots. I'll still say it. I'll take as many as you can regardless of age. It doesn't matter if your aptitude is lacking, I have a way to solve it. But remember, keep a low profile and don't let the other sects find out. I've been chased out of supporting Immortals Island. Many people want to kill me. This general's residence is my stronghold now. Don't let it be exposed." The 3 of them looked at each other and Shi Xiaotian asked in surprise, "Why were you chased out of supporting Immortals Island?" My ass. Yu Qianzhou stood up and patted Shi Xiaoyan's shoulder. He smiled and said, Xiaodan, I've taken revenge for you and An Kuangceng. The head of An Kuangceng, Lu Changqing, and his grandson Lu Jingguang were both killed by me. Oh. They were shocked again. Shi Xiaotian swallowed his saliva and said, Boss, you're not lying to me, right? You killed sect master An Kuangceng? How is this possible? Damn it. Do I look like a liar to you? Yu Qianzhou sighed and said, AI. If I didn't kill him, would I have been expelled from the supporting Immortal Island? Sigh. The days of having someone to back him up were over. From now on he would have to rely on himself. Everyone keep a low profile. They were completely speechless, but they still didn't quite believe it. How could the Righteous Path's 6th-ranked sect leader An Kuangceng be killed so easily? It's good to be expelled from this sect. In the future I can come here whenever I want. Alright, Xiaodan, get me a set of ordinary clothes. I can't wear the supporting Immortal Island's clothes anymore. I'll definitely get into trouble if I stroll around the capital. Yu Qianzhou said. Shi Xiaoyan's eyes lit up. From Yu Qianzhou's words, he could tell that Yu Qianzhou was going to be here often. He immediately agreed happily and went out to find clothes for Yu Qianzhou. Ling Feng and the other two were also overjoyed. As for Yu Qianzhou, he flashed into the garden and stored the 100 or so people in the garden into Utopia. After giving some instructions to Guan Yu, Shi Xiaotian ran over excitedly with a set of clothes. He said, Boss, try this set of clothes to see if it suits you. This is my second brother's clothes. His figure seems to be about the same as yours. Yu Qianzhou took a look and saw that the embroidered clothes, jade belt and thick-soled boots were all prepared. He threw them back and snappily said, I just told you to keep a low profile. Why did you give me these clothes? Are you afraid that others won't notice me? He waved his hand and said, Just give me the clothes of your general residence's servants. Servants' clothes are for you to wear? Shi Xiaotian was stunned. Ling Feng and the other two felt a little uncomfortable looking at the silk robes they were wearing. Yu Qianzhou frowned and said, Why are you so long-winded? If I say it's fine, it's fine. Left with no choice, Shi Xiaotian could only run back to get him a set of servants' clothes. When Yu Qianzhou put on a slanted hat and adjusted his brand-new black clothes, he instantly revealed a satisfied smile and said, Not bad, not bad. These clothes are really low profile. Xiaotian, from today onwards I'll be your follower. I don't dare, I don't dare. Shi Xiaotian hurriedly waved his hand. He thought, if you become my follower, what if one day you're not happy? Where am I going to find spirit stones and spirit pills? Yu Qianzhou waved his hand and said, Don't be long-winded. In front of others I'll be your follower. Behind others I'll still be your boss. That's settled. Ling Feng and the other two exchanged glances and said, Xiaonan, find us a set of servants' clothes too. What? Is it fun to be a servant's follower? Yu Qianzhou glared at them and said, Do you want to go to the capital's 10,000 flower house, to be a pimp? The three looked at each other and didn't dare to say anything. After staying in the capital for so long, the three naturally knew what kind of place 10,000 flower house was. Xiaotian. Speaking of 10,000 flower house, I've never been there before. Why don't you take me there now? Yu Qianzhou tidied up the crooked hat on his head and sighed. At this time he had already put away the storage bag and the sword on his back. To him it didn't matter if these things were on display or not. If he wanted to take them out, it would only take a thought. The three looked at each other and didn't know if he was telling the truth or not. Looking at his serious expression, it didn't seem like he was joking. Shi Xiaotian asked tentatively, Boss, you really want to go to 10,000 flower house? That place is a lively place. Lively? Yu Qianzhou nodded his head seriously and said, I was just saying it casually. Since you want to go, as your follower, I naturally have to accompany you. If you want to go, then hurry up. Let's go. Let's go. Don't waste time. The three were completely speechless. Yu Qianzhou pushed Shi Xiaotian out in a hurry. As he walked, he didn't forget to look back and warn the three who followed him. What are you three doing here? Go do what you need to do. Pillar of State General's residence. Yu Qianzhou had lived here for more than a year, so he was very familiar with the place. In the wealthy and powerful mansion, the two of them walked out of the back garden one after another. The servants who passed by saluted when they saw Shi Xiaotian, but when they saw the servant in new clothes behind him, they all felt that he was very unfamiliar. They all secretly muttered, Why haven't I seen the third young master's servant before? Shi Xiaotian walked confidently in front, while Yu Qianzhou followed behind with his hands behind his back. His aura wasn't any weaker than the former's, but it seemed that his awareness as a servant was a little lacking. When the two of them were about to pass the main hall, a beautiful woman walked out. The two women on her left and right were also quite good-looking. Behind them was a group of servant girls. Shi Xiaotian slowed down and said in a low voice, "You know my mother. The two beside her are my eldest sister-in-law and second sister-in-law. They married a few years ago, so you haven't seen them before." The two of them inevitably bumped into each other. Shi Xiaotian bowed and said, "Mother. Eldest sister-in-law, second sister-in-law." The servants on the other side also bowed to Shi Xiaotian. Li Hongyang looked at her son lovingly. Her eyes inadvertently glanced at the servant behind her son and was slightly startled. Not only did this servant not bow to her, he actually stood there with his hands behind his back. Yu Qianqiu looked at her and nodded with a smile. When Li Hongyang saw who it was, she was immediately shocked. When the woman beside her saw Yu Qianqiu, she frowned and said, "Uncle, is this the new retainer? Why isn't he bowing to mother?" She immediately turned around and shouted, "Housekeeper, who brought this servant? Why doesn't he know the most basic manners of servants? Someone come. Bring him to teach him the rules." Chapter 218. Hearing this, Yu Qianqiu was dumbfounded. Not only him, Li Hongyang and Shi Xiaotian were also dumbfounded. Not far away, a man in his 50s jogged over and repeatedly smiled apologetically at the woman. He shouted at Yu Qianqiu in a low voice, "Still not coming with me, Mr. Yu?" The housekeeper was Shi Shunqing, a retainer of the general's office. He had met Yu Qianqiu many times in the past, so he was familiar with him. He more or less knew what kind of person Yu Qianqiu was. When he saw Yu Qianqiu's face clearly, he was dumbfounded. Close to 10 years had passed, and his own appearance had already aged. However, Yu Qianqiu still looked the same, just that his appearance had become more mature. He naturally recognized him with a single glance, and was immediately at a loss as to what to do. "Shunqing, this has nothing to do with you. Take all the servants away. I haven't seen my wife for many years, so we have something to talk about." Yu Qianqiu came back to his senses and smiled. He ordered the housekeeper to leave. Shi Shunqing nodded repeatedly. After getting Li Hongyang's permission, he took the group of servants away. Seeing that the housekeeper didn't listen to her, the woman was a little annoyed. She glared at him and said, "Does the general's office have any rules? Wanshi, don't be rude." Li Hongyang stopped her. The other woman next to her quietly watched everything that happened just now. The servant in front of her was obviously not simple. How could a normal person order the housekeeper of the general's office? "Mother, these servants are getting more and more unruly. If you don't teach them a lesson, they will bully their master in the future. Mother is kind, so you can't be cruel. Why don't you let your wife discipline them instead?" The woman seemed to have lost a nerve in her head and was still chattering. The other woman had already pulled her a few times, but she still didn't notice. "Shut up." Li Hongyang also scolded her wife. In her impression, Yu Qianqiu was like a god. Back then, he just casually drew a path and trapped her eldest son for a few days. How could she offend him? Damn it. If you continue to nag, I'll sell you to Africa. Yu Qianqiu was speechless when he met such a woman. He pointed at the woman's pretty face and asked Shi Xiaoan, "Xiaoan, is this your sister-in-law? Is it Shi Youqian's wife or Shi Yintian's?" Shi Xiaotian looked at him with a wry smile and thought to himself, "If you don't wear this servant's clothes, how could you have caused such trouble?" Li Hongyang took over the conversation and introduced awkwardly, "Mr. Please don't be offended. This is Bao Wanshi, the wife of my eldest son Yu Tian, and this is Situ Hui, the wife of my second son Yin Tian." Bao Wanshi. Yu Qianqiu sized her up and laughed coldly. "She doesn't live up to her name. Why did Yu Tian choose such a shrew? In my opinion, he should just divorce her." His words were not polite at all. The people at the side were speechless. Shi Xiaotian really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Bao Wanshi was so angry that her face turned pale. She said with a trembling voice, You. Wah." She was so angry that she cried. Yu Qianqiu didn't have a good impression of shrewd-like women. What he said just now was to anger her. Seeing that she was crying, he immediately became interested in watching a good show. He jokingly said, "Cry, continue to cry. It's too soft, louder." Bao Wanshi did as he said and began to cry loudly. Her voice was really sharp and she even made a lot of body movements. Situ Hui, who was at the side, tried to comfort her, but it was useless. Li Hongyang felt a headache coming on. Shi Xiaotian quickly pulled Yu Qianqiu back and said, "Boss, I'm begging you. Please be lenient with your words. She is my sister-in-law after all. Just give me some face, okay? Who made my wife cry? A voice that pretended to be angry was heard with a hint of laughter. Yu Qianqiu turned to look. A person walked out from the entrance. He wore a scholar's hat and a vermilion official's robe. Who else could it be but the Shi family's boss, Shi Yutian? However, he seemed much more mature than before, especially with the two small tufts of beard on his mouth. Wah! Bao Wanshi acted as if she saw her savior. She wiped her tears and rushed into Shi Yotian's arms. She began to complain about all her grievances. There's such an evil servant. Wanshi, don't cry. I'll teach him a lesson for you. Shi Yutian let go of his wife and walked over with large strides. Ah, interesting. Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but clap his hands and laugh. He said, Shi Yutian, we haven't seen each other for so many years. I didn't think you'd become a flower protector. I'd like to see how you'll teach me a lesson. How dare you? After Shi Yutian saw the person's face clearly, the words he was about to shout got stuck in his throat. His face turned red. When he came to his senses, he hurriedly lifted the hem of his official robe and ran over to pay his respects. Yutian greets Mr. I haven't seen Mr. for many years. You've been well. No matter what their relationship was like in the past, meeting old friends was always a happy thing. Yu Qianqiu supported him and said with a smile, I don't live as well as you do. Hugging your wife and flirting in public. TSK. What a simple life. Mister, you must be joking. Yutian only covets some romantic relationships. How can it compare to Mr.'s celestial life? After all these years, Mr. is still as elegant as ever. Yutian really envies you. He was speaking from the bottom of his heart. Back then, he painstakingly pursued the path of cultivation. In the end, the path was ethereal and he woke up from his dream. He finally gave up and settled down to marry a wife and focus on his career. However, he couldn't help but have a cultivation complex in his heart. He sighed to himself. His third wife was the one he was envious of. He often wanted to chat with his third wife, but it was difficult to see her leave the forbidden area of the back garden. At this moment, Bao Wanshi was no longer crying. She was looking at her husband with her mouth wide open. No matter how stupid she was, she could sense that the servant in front of her was not ordinary. Shi Yutian waved at her and said, Wanshi, come and greet Mr. Bao Wanshi didn't know where to put her hands. She walked over gracefully and saluted with a flushed face. Bao Wanshi greets Mr. I was reckless and offended Mr. just now. Please forgive me Mr. Si Tuhui, who was at the side, was very obedient. She didn't need to be reminded and came over to Bao. Si Tuhui greets Mr. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly at Bao Wanshi and ignored her. Instead, he raised his hand at Si Tuhui, indicating that she didn't have to be so polite. He smiled and said, Are you Yin Tian's wife? I'm old acquaintances with your husband. What? Husband? This Mister's words were a little rude. Si Tuhui muttered to herself, but she nodded with a smile and retreated to the side. Shi Yutian saw that Yu Qianqiu was ignoring his wife's apology. He immediately gave his third brother a look, asking him to plead for leniency. Shi Shaotian understood and walked over to pull Yu Qianqiu. He smiled and said, Boss, my sister-in-law actually has a good heart. She's just a little outspoken. Don't bother with her. That's right. Shi Yutian walked over and said, Yutian apologizes to Mr. on my wife's behalf. I hope that Mr. will forgive my wife this time for my third brother's sake. Actually, Yu Qianqiu wouldn't really bother with an ordinary person like her. However, women sometimes relied on their status and didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. In order to be less long-winded in the future, he couldn't help but scare her a little. He immediately pointed his finger and shouted, Bao Wanshi, I'll spare your life this time for the sake of the Shi brothers. If you dare to do this again, I'll definitely take your head. When that time comes, it'll be useless no matter who pleads for mercy. Hurry up and thank Mr. Shi Yutian tugged at his wife. Bao Wanshi felt very wronged. How could she be treated worse than an outsider in her own home? However, she still thanked him honestly. This matter was settled just like that. Bless the heavens. Yu Qianqiu patted his shoulder and sighed, Shaotian and I are going to Wanhua brothel. Do you want to join us? Shi Shaotian almost vomited blood. He looked at his mother, who was glaring at him, guiltily. Si Tuhui's face was already red. Bao Wanshi's eyes were wide open. Shi Yutian kept smiling foolishly at Yu Qianqiu. This question was very difficult to answer. In fact, he really wanted to go out with Yu Qianqiu. It was not for the fans of Wanhua brothel but purely for Yu Qianqiu. However, his wife, mother and sister-in-law were all at the side. How was he supposed to answer? Yu Qianqiu joked, "Are you going or not? Why are you smiling foolishly? Give me an answer." Shi Xiaoyan's expression twitched. "Boss, you just want to see the world in chaos. You're not allowed to go." Bao Wanshi opened her arms and stood in front of Shi Yutian. She glared at Yu Qianqiu and said, "Even if you kill me, I won't let him go to that place with you." I didn't know that she was a feminist. Yu Qianqiu chuckled and said, "Yudan, since your wife doesn't want you to go, then forget it. Xiaodan, let's go." With that said, he walked straight out. Shi Xiaotian lowered his head and followed behind as if he was looking for ants. "Hey, Mr. Wait." Shi Yutian was a little anxious. "If you dare to go, I'll fight it out with you." Bao Wanshi jumped onto Shi Yutian and hugged him tightly. She didn't care about her image anymore. Not far away, Yu Qianqiu's laughter could be heard. Si Tuhui's eyes revealed a trace of curiosity. Who was this person? Chapter 219. The speed at which news spread in the cultivation world was very fast. It was much faster than the speed at which a horse could run or a pigeon could carry a message. Once the news of Yu Qianqiu being expelled from the supporting Immortals Island was released, it caused a huge uproar. Of course, an ordinary core formation disciple would not be able to cause such a huge uproar. The main reason was that the things he did had a huge impact. 100 Flowers Valley beat up the grandson of Sect Master Ong Kwangtsung, and Hat Island beat up the son of Deluo Sect Master. This guy seemed to be targeting those with status. Ong Kwangtsung announced that Sect Master Ong Kwangtsung and his grandson had been killed by Yu Qianqiu. Ong Kwangtsung offered a reward of 1 million high-grade spirit stones to anyone who could provide information about Yu Qianqiu. The reward for taking Yu Qianqiu's head was 5 million high-grade spirit stones, and the reward for capturing Yu Qianqiu alive was 10 million high-grade spirit stones. As soon as the news of the Azure Light sect was released, the entire cultivation world was boiling. A mere core formation disciple killed Sect Master Ong Kwangtsung? It was hard to believe. However, for those from the small sects, 1 million, 5 million, or even 10 million upper spiritual stones were tempting enough for them. Now that Yu Qianqiu didn't have the support of supporting Immortal Island, he was just a core formation cultivator. He was no different from a lowly vagrant cultivator. There was nothing to be afraid of. Therefore, they sent out their disciples to investigate. Even if they did not expect to earn 10 million high-grade spirit stones, it would still be good if they could earn 1 million. Those poor rogue cultivators tried their luck everywhere. However, there was a rumor that Ong Kwangtsung's ancestor Qin Nu failed to capture Yu Qianqiu when he confronted Yu Qianqiu. Instead, he allowed Yu Qianqiu to escape unscathed. However, after thinking about it, everyone understood that this was pure nonsense. How could a late-stage transcending tribulation cultivator fail to capture a core formation cultivator? It was a joke and a rumor. Under Ong Kwangtsung's request, the entire cultivation alliance began to operate. All the righteous sects that joined the cultivation alliance would search for Yu Qianqiu in the cultivation world. If necessary, they could kill him on the spot. Deluo sect was especially supportive of this. At this moment, in the Wu clan's ancestral hall of the 4 major clans, the clan heads of the 4 major clans gathered together at the fastest speed. After receiving the news from Wuxia, the 4 clan heads weren't surprised that Yu Qianqiu was expelled from Fuxin Island. After the 4 clan heads had a discussion, they issued a secret order to the disciples of the 4 major clans to search for Yu Qianqiu in secret. Once they found him, they were to protect him at all costs until he returned to the 4 major clans. Once this news was out, the evil Dao was the happiest. The righteous sects actually had such an unconventional traitor. Moreover, he was a traitor of Fuxin Island. Moreover, he was such a famous traitor. If he could join the evil Dao, it would be a huge blow to the reputation of the righteous sections. Why wouldn't they do it? As a result, the entire evil Dao alliance began to operate rapidly. All the evil Dao sects had a common understanding that they would protect Yu Qianqiu at all costs when necessary. If any of the sects suffered any losses because of this matter, all the sects would compensate them together. In short, they must not let the righteous sects succeed. 10,000 demons Qiu Wuyuan clamored in high spirits as he personally commanded this leap operation. In an instant, both the righteous and the evil Dao took action. Yu Qianqiu had completely disrupted the entire cultivation world. No one knew if the righteous sects would succeed or if the evil Dao would be rampant. In the bustling streets of the Wuxia Empire, Yu Qianqiu was wearing black clothes and a small hat. He was dressed like a servant and was completely unaware of everything that happened in the cultivation world because of him. He was leisurely strolling behind Shi Xiaotian. When he saw the people in carriages passing by and people looking at him with strange eyes, Yu Qianqiu immediately restrained himself. Not to mention anything else, the fact that he was misunderstood by Bao Wanshi at the general's mansion meant that he was not good enough at acting as a servant. Thus he found a passerby as a comparison. He put down his hands behind his back and straightened his chest. He followed behind Shi Xiaotian with a dejected look. "Boss." Shi Xiaotian turned around and was stunned. Why did his boss look like a thief? He said in a daze, "Are we really going to Wanhua Lu? *CK. Have you ever seen a young master call a servant boss? Please act more properly and call me Little Qian." Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes. "Little Qian, are we really going to Wanhua Lu?" Shi Xiaotian said a little unnaturally. "Young master, if you say so, we will go." Yu Qianqiu put on a servant's smile and thought, Wanhua Lu is so famous in the capital. I wonder what the difference is between the brothels of the ancient times and the ones in my previous life. I wasn't in the mood before, but now that I'm interested, I'll be letting myself down if I don't take a look. When did I say I wanted to go? It seems like you're the one who said you wanted to go. Shi Xiaotian was speechless. He originally wanted to get a carriage, but he didn't know why Yu Qianqiu rejected it and insisted on walking. Wanhua Lu should be considered as the #1 brothel in the Wuxia Empire. There were branches in all the bigger cities in the empire. To be able to obtain the title of Wanhua and make so many men flock to it like ducks and spend money like water, it definitely had its own unique points. Yu Qianqiu came because of this point. This was the #1 brothel in the world. Compared to the #1 brothel in the world, Fuxian Island, it seemed like more people knew about the former than the latter. The night was about to turn dark. On a small street that wasn't the main street, the moment one entered the street, one could smell the fragrance of pink powder. This small street was abnormally bustling with people walking to and fro, rubbing shoulders with each other. It was a street where one could eat, drink and be merry. This was all thanks to the #1 brothel in the world, Wanhua Lu. When the two walked in, Yu Qianqiu exclaimed in admiration that this was a first-rate place to spend money. Shi Xiaotian's face also became lively. Suddenly, there was a crowd of people rushing towards the largest building in the middle of the street. That building was decorated with colorful makeup, and it was even more beautiful than a bride's. The fragrance of pink powder was coming from that building. Needless to say, this was definitely Wanhua Lu. The two of them were swept by the crowd. Shi Xiaotian turned his head and looked at the crowded carriages on the street. He was secretly glad that he didn't take a carriage. Yu Qianqiu patted the shoulder of a person beside him and asked, "Brother, why is it so lively here? Is Wanhua Lu like this every day?" That person was trying his best to squeeze forward. Hearing this, he looked at Yu Qianqiu with surprise and said, "One look and I know it's your first time here. Today is the day that the #1 courtesan of Wanhua Lu will appear. Normally you won't be able to see it. It only happens once a month. If you're lucky you might be able to see it." After saying this, he ignored him and continued to squeeze forward. The #1 courtesan of the world's #1 courtesan? How beautiful would she be? Yu Qianqiu was instantly interested. He secretly circulated his true essence, trying to push through the crowd. At this moment, a shout came from the street, "All of you get out of my way." The crowd turned around and saw an officer riding a large horse leading a large group of soldiers. They began to part the crowd and cut in. The commoners didn't dare to block their way, and the crowd began to squeeze to the sides again. The entrance of the 10,000 flower house was immediately surrounded by a group of soldiers wielding shining long sabers. Although there were soldiers guarding the entrance, the carriages on the street still couldn't enter. Hence, there were more soldiers protecting a group of people who got off the carriages and walked towards Wanhua Lu. Looking at the clothes of these people, they were probably nobles. Seeing these people easily pass through the crowd with their heads held high, Yu Qianqiu really wanted to throw a few bricks at them, but after thinking about it, he held back. The two of them squeezed into the crowd and waited for more than 2 hours. After the soldiers had probably escorted hundreds of nobles in, they finally retreated and guarded the entrance of Wanhua Lu, not letting random people in. Then, a few rich people who were escorted by their servants were allowed in after negotiating with the tortoise bus at the entrance. As for the people squeezing on the street, they were basically commoners or people who weren't rich or powerful, so they were naturally prevented from entering. They could only watch from the outside. Damn it. The #1 courtesan of the world's #1 courtesan. This daddy here hangs out with the third young master of the National Pillar General's estate, who holds great military power, but I can't even enter a brothel. Damn it. Yu Qianqiu was so angry that his nose almost became crooked. He glared at Shi Xiaotian, who was shaking his head and smiling bitterly. He was very unhappy. A trace of ruthlessness flashed across his face. He raised his hand and shouted, "The third young master of the National Pillar General's estate has arrived." Chapter 220. His voice was loud and clear. The moment the name Pillar of the State General was announced, it immediately produced a miraculous effect. The clamoring crowd immediately quietened down. Shwa. Everyone turned their heads to look in one direction. Becoming the center of attention, Shi Xiaotian was momentarily stunned. He never expected Yu Qianqiu to make such a move. At the entrance of the Thousand-Flower Brothel, the military officer holding the saber by his waist looked over in shock. Yu Qianqiu, who was dressed as a house servant, was naturally unable to attract his attention. Seeing Shi Xiaotian in his luxurious robes, he was a little shocked. As the third young master of the Pillar of the State General's residence, although Shi Xiaotian rarely appeared in public, he had still seen him on a few occasions. As a soldier, the Pillar of the State General who had been fighting at the western borders for many years was undoubtedly the idol of the entire Wuxia Empire. He also had a very high prestige among the citizens of the empire. Especially last year when the general's 2 million soldiers split into 6 groups and defeated the 6 countries, forcing the 6 countries to sign an armistice, it pushed the reputation of the Pillar of the State General to the peak. In their hearts, the Pillar of the State General was the guardian of the Wuxia Empire. Out of the way. The military officer shouted excitedly. The citizens also had a look of surprise on their faces as they squeezed to the side, afraid to block Shi Xiaotian's path. The military officer waved his hand, and the soldiers guarding the Thousand-Flower Brothel immediately split into 2 groups, rushing into the path that the citizens had vacated. They lined up neatly on both sides of the path. The military officer strode towards Shi Xiaotian and waved his hand to open his cloak. Holding the saber in his hand, he knelt down on one knee and said in a clear voice, "This general is the City Guard Patrol Commander Yuan Fei. Greetings, third young master." Greetings, third young master. The 2 rows of guards and the guards of the Thousand-Flower Brothel all knelt down in unison. It was unknown which citizen knelt down first, but the citizens of the entire street all knelt down with difficulty. Because it was simply too crowded, they all shouted, "This humble citizen greets third young master. This humble citizen greets third young master." Their shouts rang out one after another, and it was clear that they were all heartfelt respect. Shi Xiaotian was a little embarrassed. Coming to a brothel in the name of the National Pillar General's residence was not something to be proud of. Yu Qianqiu was dumbfounded. He didn't expect the Pillar of the State General to have such high prestige among the soldiers and citizens. He couldn't help but feel regret for his actions earlier. To have caused the citizens to love the Pillar of the State General in such a manner. His conscience really couldn't be justified. After all, he was a soldier in his previous life. To be able to command such respect from the citizens, it was impossible to do so without experiencing 1,000 miles of bloodshed. Yu Qianqiu was truly ashamed to have tarnished the reputation of a general like this. The nobles and the rich who had entered the 10,000 Flower House were also shocked by the continuous shouts outside. Third young master? Which family's third young master had come to cause such a big commotion? They sent their servants to the door to inquire. All the soldiers and civilians on the street knelt down. Only the 2 young men dressed as a master and a servant stood out, making the servants speechless. At this moment, Shi Xiaotian couldn't help but roll his eyes at Yu Qianqiu with a little complaint. The latter smiled awkwardly. Shi Xiaotian circulated his true yuan and said loudly, "My fellow citizens, please get up. I, Shi Xiaotian, am not worthy of such a big greeting." His voice surged through the entire street, drowning out everyone's greetings. The soldiers and commoners were shocked. What a loud voice. As expected of the son of the National Pillar General. Like father, like son. Everyone thanked him and said, "Thank you, third young master." They got up with difficulty. "Commander Yuan, please get up." Shi Xiaotian reached out to help Yuan Fei up. When the latter heard the former's loud voice and saw him coming to help him up, his competitive spirit was secretly aroused. He wanted to see if he had real skills or was just using his voice to scare people. Who knew that he didn't even have the strength to resist and was lifted up just like that. Yuan Fei couldn't help but be shocked. What great strength. His gaze swept past the sword hanging on Shi Xiaoyan's waist. No wonder he was brought up in such a manner. Seeing their commander stand up, the soldiers also stood up. Yuan Fei waved his hand and said, "Third young master, please." "You're welcome." Shi Xiaotian cupped his hands and walked forward under Yuan Fei's lead. Yu Qianqiu followed behind dejectedly. Stepping into the myriad flower house, Yuan Fei stayed outside to continue guarding while the pimp led the master and servant in. The lanterns were lit and the myriad flower house was filled with guests. Alluring women were walking around with plates of fruits, wine and all kinds of delicacies. Hearing that the third young master of the National Pillar General's residence had arrived, the nobles who were already seated gathered downstairs to greet him. In terms of status and rank, there was no need to greet him. Many of the nobles had a higher rank than the National Pillar General. However, he was the one who held the strongest military power in the empire. He was someone who could make the entire Wuxia Empire tremble with a stomp of his foot. He was much stronger than those nobles who only had titles and name only. Shi Xiaotian gracefully greeted the crowd. One moment it was that little prince, the next moment it was this little prince. Shi Xiaotian handled the situation with ease. Yu Qianqiu nodded to himself. As expected of someone from the upper class. Today he had finally witnessed the power of the National Pillar General's residence. He had a new plan in mind. They were in an enclosure with a big performance stage in the middle. There were 2 levels of seats for spectators. The upper level was an open single room, while the lower level was a circle of single-table banquets. This should be the place where the courtesan Belle would sing and dance tonight to celebrate peace and prosperity. Shi Xiaotian arrived late. The single room upstairs had already been occupied. However, there was no need to worry. Naturally, there were people who knew their place and left one for him. The 2 of them were in a single room on the 2nd floor, one sitting and one standing. The one standing behind Shi Xiaotian was of course Yu Qianqiu. A servant couldn't possibly sit with his master in public, could he? Wan Hualu had arranged for some prostitutes to come over. However, Yu Qianqiu felt that they were too unattractive. He found an excuse that the third young master didn't want to be disturbed and chased them out. He was used to seeing beauties in the cultivation world. Naturally, he wasn't interested in the so-called beauties here. If it wasn't for the fact that he still wanted to see the courtesan that everyone was fighting for, he might have turned around and left. Soon the performance on the central stage began. For a moment the sound of zither, flute and drums rang out. More than a dozen graceful women danced gracefully, causing the crowd to cheer. Yu Qianqiu originally thought that they were going to do a striptease or something. Who knew that after wandering around for a long time, there wasn't anything interesting at all. One group after another went down, and another group changed into different styles. They didn't have the awareness of a brothel at all. He really didn't understand why those princes and nobles were cheering. Yu Qianqiu wished that he could throw a grenade down and let those women who were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws quickly get off the stage. He wanted that courtesan to come up and take a look as soon as possible. If she didn't look good, then they should leave as soon as possible to avoid wasting time. This brothel was too boring. The music played by those musicians didn't have any passion at all. When it fell into his ears, it was like a lullaby. It made him sleepy and yawn repeatedly. After an unknown amount of time, just as he was in a semi-conscious state, the commotion around him woke him up. The lonely and light sound of the zither entered his ears, and it was quite refreshing. When he looked again, the surrounding princes and nobles were all leaning against the railings to watch. "The courtesan is coming out," Shi Xiaotian said softly. He also walked to the railings to watch. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up. He had been waiting for the stars and the moon. Finally it was here. He also followed. In the depths of the lanterns, a figure dressed in a light gauze and thin red palace dress leisurely walked over. A long white jade hairpin was inserted into her jet black hair bun. The 2 ends of the hairpin were pulled up by a red veil that covered her face. Her pretty face was faintly discernible. It was hard to see clearly, but it was exceptionally alluring. Her white and tender lily-white hands were hugging a plain zither. One side of her ample chest was lightly pressed against it, making the other side even more abruptly perky. The red veil covered her perky buttocks, trying to cover her slender jade legs. However, the boundless spring scenery was always inadvertently revealed when her jade legs strode forward. The beauty dressed in red lightly walked onto the stage. She put down the jade zither on the table that had already been set up by someone. She nodded slightly to the surrounding people and then sat down peacefully. The red veil on both sides of her buttocks was quietly pulled open, revealing her white and tender thighs. Good. Someone clapped and shouted. Immediately, it caused a loud commotion. Everyone agreed one after another. Yuchencho finally became spirited. He clapped with all his might. Damn it. He finally saw someone who was pleasing to the eye. Although he couldn't see her face clearly just based on her figure alone, it was already top-notch. The single room for the two of them was in a good position. The courtesan happened to be facing the two of them so they could slowly admire her. 10 jade-like fingers pressed down on the strings of the zither, gently evoking a quiet and exquisite sound. The surroundings immediately quietened down. Yuchencho nodded. At first he sounded a little sad, but it was still a little interesting. At least he was able to continue listening. The sound of the zither reverberated faintly. The face under the red veil suddenly sang softly, "I am a fox that has cultivated for 1,000 years. 1,000 years of cultivation, 1,000 years of loneliness, ah." The smile on Yuchencho's face instantly froze. Then it started to twitch. Chapter 221. It was a completely different tune from the Wuxia Empire, with a different style and singing style. However, it was undeniable that it was indeed pleasant to the ears. It was completely different from the current high-pitched tunes that were popular. It was simple and mellow yet moving. Even those ignorant and incompetent hedonistic sons could immediately understand the meaning behind it. Gradually, the image of a white fox trapped in love for 1,000 years appeared in everyone's mind. White fox. Shi Xiaoyan's face was also filled with shock. How did this popular tune in the cultivation world spread to the myriad flower house in the secular world? Moreover, the person who composed this tune was right beside him. The two of them looked at each other, completely losing the mood to look at beauties. They looked at the Hua Kuei again. Although they couldn't be sure, they had a feeling that the other party was sizing them up intentionally or unintentionally. This Hua Kuei was probably not simple. The surrounding nobles had previously been drooling over the Hua Kuei's beauty, but now they were completely immersed in the Hua Kuei's singing. Even after the song ended, they still couldn't extricate themselves. After a long time, their exclamations turned into cheers. They all felt that this trip was not in vain, so they rewarded the Hua Kuei with gold and silver ingots. However, the Hua Kuei seemed to be indifferent to the praises and rewards of the crowd. Yuchencho and Shi Xiaotian were no longer in the mood to stay. They turned around and were about to leave quietly. Suddenly, a coquettish voice transmitted into Yuchencho's ears. "I didn't expect that the abandoned disciple of Fuxian Island that the entire Cultivation Alliance is looking for would actually be involved with the pillar of the state generals." Yuchencho stopped in his tracks and suddenly turned to look at the Hua Kuei downstairs. Who else could it be if not her who was able to sing the White Fox? The other party could actually transmit a voice. It was clear that her cultivation was above the tribulation stage. No wonder he couldn't tell. Who was this person? Unfortunately, his cultivation was not at the stage where he could transmit a voice. He couldn't question her in public, could he? He could only reveal a stern and questioning gaze. Seeing his reaction, Shi Xiaotian also stopped. He didn't know what he was going to do. Yo. The third son of the National Pillar General was actually an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator, hee. Yuchencho, you've really found a good hiding place. Yuchencho heard Hua Kuei's laughter again. Don't look at me like that. You want to know who I am? Then let's meet at the top of the highest mountain in the western suburbs of the capital. Come quickly. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that the Cultivation Alliance won't find out about the relationship between you and the National Pillar General's residence, hee. After Hua Kuei finished transmitting her voice, she picked up her zither and quietly walked away amidst the cries of pain from the crowd. She only left the crowd with a graceful and extremely alluring back view. Many people beat their chests and stamped their feet, asking everywhere why the Oiran Queen left after just one song. No one could answer. Those who wanted to use force were also stopped by others. Since Myriad Flower Tower was able to establish itself in the Wuxia Empire, they naturally had a powerful background or strength to back them up. They weren't people they could afford to offend just because they wanted to. Yuchencho squinted his eyes as he watched Hua Kuei leave. He whispered into Shi Xiaoyan's ear, "I have something to attend to. I'll be heading out first. You play by yourself." With that he left quietly. Shi Xiaotian looked at the departing Hua Kuei, then at the departing Yuchencho. He sat down thoughtfully. After leaving Myriad Flower Tower, Yuchencho found an empty alley and released a flying sword out of thin air. He stepped on the sword and quickly flew towards the western suburbs. The people of the capital naturally couldn't see it in the dark. Even if they did see a stream of light, they would think it was a dazzling light. The highest mountain in the western suburbs was steep. It should be a place with few people. On the mountain, the chirping of insects could be heard. The silver moonlight covered the mountain peak. The rocks on the mountain peak were exposed and could be considered flat. As the mountain wind blew, a few old pine trees swayed under the moonlight. Yu Qianzhou landed on his sword. He flipped the sword in his hand and carefully looked around. Even if the other party was an expert at the end of the tribulation stage, he was confident that he could escape. It wasn't a big place. Under the moonlight, it was clear that the other party hadn't arrived yet. The terrain at the foot of the mountain was dangerous. In the depths of the forest it seemed a little eerie. Yu Qianzhou looked at the dim lights of the capital. He stood on the mountain peak and welcomed the mountain wind. He held his sword with both hands and quietly waited for the arrival of myriad flower towers. Hua Kuei. Ding ding dong dong. The sound of a zither suddenly sounded behind him. Yu Qianzhou was shocked. He suddenly turned around and his gaze fell on the few old pine trees. A woman wrapped in a red veil sat on the top of the tree and played the zither. Who else could it be other than that Hua Kuei? Damn it. Trying to scare me. Aren't you afraid of pricking your butt while wearing so little? Yu Qianzhou said in a deep voice. Who are you? Why did you ask me to come here? How do you know me? Hua Kuei didn't answer. Instead, she played the zither and sang, Yesterday was like the flowing river in the east, far away from me. Today my heart is in chaos, how troublesome. Did you ask me to come here just to listen to you play and sing? Yu Qianzhou waved his sword and pointed at her. Hua Kuei was completely focused. It was as if she was deeply immersed in her own song. Only when the song was finished did she open her fingers and press on the zither to stop the lingering sound. She sighed and said, Yu Qianzhou, I heard that the song I played and sang today was composed by you? Crazy. Yu Qianzhou said in a deep voice, So what if I composed it? So what if I didn't? Nothing much. On the treetop, Hua Kuei's figure flashed, and under the moonlight he suddenly appeared beside Yu Qianzhou, leaving behind several afterimages. The latter was startled and he fiercely jumped back. Whoosh! Nearly 100 flying swords suddenly appeared, and they protected him from all directions. Hua Kuei, who was holding the zither, was startled. She didn't see how Yu Qianzhou could produce so many flying swords at once. She also didn't see him carrying a storage bag. She chuckled and said, What are you nervous about? But you do have some skills. No wonder you could kill the sect master of Anquangtsung. I'm a little curious. How could that half-baked Hao Wei teach a disciple like you? That's right, he might have learned it on supporting Immortal Island. But Hao Wei doesn't know how to play the zither or sing. What do you mean by good? Or bad? I don't know him. Who are you? Why did you ask me to come here? Yu Qianzhou said in a deep voice. You don't know Hao Wei? I get it. You should know the Hao Sansi of Anquangtsung, right? Isn't he your master? Hua Kuei laughed. What does my master have to do with you? Hua Kuei smiled and said, I heard that you offended the sect master of Anquangtsung because of your master's death. That's why you joined supporting Immortal Island. Yes. You beat up the grandson of the sect master of Anquangtsung in the Hundred Flowers Valley. Then you beat up the son of the Deluo sect master at Hatter Island. Then you killed Lu Chongqing and his grandson. It looks like you're still brooding over the death of your master, Hao Sansi. Sigh. I didn't expect Hao Sansi to have taken in a good disciple. He's always thinking about avenging his master. It's only right for a disciple to avenge his master. There's no need for you to flatter him. I find it strange. You didn't invite me here to have a heart-to-heart talk, did you? Yu Qianzhou sneered. Only right? Hao Sansi has finally done something right in this life, so his death isn't unjust. Hua Kuei giggled again, laughing so hard that his body trembled. Su Qin, who was in her arms, stood on the ground. She lifted an arm and removed the veil that was tied to her hairpin. Her charming face smiled at Yu Qianzhou. So familiar. Yu Qianzhou was stunned. He searched his mind and suddenly remembered a person. He couldn't help but exclaim, You're the 100 Charms enchantress of the Demon Illusion Palace? Chapter 222. Oh, little brother, you have a good memory. I didn't expect you to remember our first meeting. It's not in vain that I've been paying attention to you all these years. She had never seen a man like this before. Her attitude gradually changed from disdain to ridicule, fingers over the strings of the zither, and then from shock to admiration. After a string of homophonic
Such a
notes,
man was
she
indeed
covered her
rare
mouth
in the
and
cultivation
laughed.
world.
Her breast
And it could be
rippled,
said that she was
and the red
convinced.
muslin wrapped
Then
around
a
her
dramatic
swayed with
change
the mountain
occurred.
wind. Allure
The color of
seductress
her
beat
lower
How
body
Wu-wei
was
to death,
faintly
but
discernible.
in the end, she was the
really
one who
charming
healed
when
him.
she smiled.
Under her careful
Yu
care,
Qianqiu was
How
stunned and
Wu-wei's
thought,
mood also
amazing.
changed during the healing
Among
process.
all the beauties he knew,
He didn't
he
expect
expect
that
this
seeing a woman like
seemingly
Allure
seductive and
seductress.
absurd woman had
She
such
had
a
the
side
charm
to
of a
her.
mature woman.
As
to
a
the
result,
extreme.
there was a problem.
No wonder she
When
was
a man
called
and a
Allure
woman
seductress.
spent a long time together,
However, he didn't know
once
whether
they had
she
a
was
good
a friend
impression
or
of
a
each
foe,
other,
so
he
he
couldn't
couldn't
be
be
stopped,
careless.
and the two of them developed
He took a
feelings
deep
for
breath
each
to
other.
calm himself
To be
down and
exact,
said
the two of them
expressionlessly,
fell in love.
"Why have you
In
been
the
paying
cultivation
attention to
world,
me?"
it was
Allure
absolutely
seductress
forbidden
stopped
for
laughing and
righteous
shook
and
her
evil
head.
to fall
"Are
in
you
love
really
with each other,
confused or just
especially
pretending?
the righteous.
Don't you know
How
the
Wu-wei,
relationship
who had
between
recovered
me and
from
your
his
master?"
injuries, returned to
Yu Qianqiu's
Qianqiu's
eyes
eyes
flickered.
uneasily.
He
He
had
hadn't
dared
dared
to mention
between
this between
her
her
to his
and Lu
master.
Wanwan in the
However,
spirit's stone
Allure
mind.
seductress was
If
a
How
woman
Wu-wei
who
was
dared
really
to
his
love and
master,
hate.
how Sansi,
This might
then
be
the
the
difference
difference
between
between
evil
her
and
and his
righteous.
master was ambiguous.
Allure seductress
He
couldn't
might
bear
even
the
have
pain
to
of
call her his
lovesickness,
master's
so
wife.
she secretly
However,
went
it
to
seemed
Kwang
too
Tsung to find
ridiculous.
How Wu-wei.
How could a
As
dirty
a
old
result,
man like his
How Wu-wei
master
was
pick
scared
up
to
such
death
an
and
arrogant
advised
girl?
her not to come to
Besides,
Kwang Tsung
Allure
anymore.
seductress was the
His
master
words
of the
almost made
enchanted
Allure
palace.
seductress die
Unless
of
she
anger.
was a pervert.
"I'm not afraid.
Allure
What are you
seductress
afraid
seemed
of?"
to have seen
A
through his
man who
mind.
isn't even afraid
She
of
didn't
death
wait
is
for
afraid
his
of
answer
this?
and told him a story
She
of
was
the
so
past.
angry that she
At
simply
that time,
revealed her
Allure
whereabouts, and
seductress
Kwang
wasn't the
Tsung
master of the
escaped.
enchanted palace
Her
yet.
willfulness didn't
When she
cause
went
any
down the
trouble
mountain
for
to
herself,
gain experience,
but it
she
caused
happened to
How
meet How
Wu-wei to
Wu-wei, who
suffer.
was also going
When the
down the
matter
mountain
was
to gain
exposed and he
experience.
was reprimanded
At
by
that
the
time,
sect,
he wasn't
How
called
Wu-wei
Sansi.
honestly confessed
One
what
was
had happened
righteous
and
and
almost
the other
lost his
evil,
life.
so they started to
If
fight.
it weren't for the fact
However,
that his master
How Wu-wei
happened
was
to be
only
the
in the
sect
early
master
stage of
core
core formation
formation
at
and
that
wanted to
time,
protect
while
him,
Allure
there wouldn't
seductress
be How
was in the middle
Sansi in the
stage of
future.
nascent soul.
In fact,
There was a
back then,
huge
the
gap
sect
between their
master of
cultivation.
Kwang Tsung thought
As
very
a
highly
result,
of this
Allure
disciple and even
seductress was
wanted to
not
train
only
him to be
injured
his
but also
successor.
captured by How
However,
Wu-wei.
this matter was
The Allure
completely
temptress
ruined.
had always
The
looked
sect
down on the
master was
hypocrisy of the
heartbroken
righteous,
and reprimanded
so
his
she teased
disciple
How Wu-wei
severely.
by saying that she
He
wouldn't
also
kill him
changed
as
his
long
name
as
to
he
How
was willing to
Sansi,
join her,
which
meant
meant
that he should
palace.
think twice before
However,
doing
How
anything.
Wu-wei would rather
In the
die
end,
than
he
submit.
couldn't avoid the punishment.
Every time
and
he
swore
opened
never
his
to have
mouth,
any
he would
contact
call
with
her
Allure
demoness.
seductress again. As a
He even
result,
made a
he had
fuss and
angered
faced
the
the wall
temptress
to
of 100
reflect on his
charms.
mistakes for 10
Thus,
years.
she tormented
After
him
that,
until he was
Allure
on the verge of
seductress
death.
was a little regretful,
But even if he
she
was
held
on his
on.
last breath,
In the end,
How
the two
Wu-wei
of them
would
really
really
didn't
die
see
than
each other
submit.
for decades.
He continued
By
to curse and
coincidence,
swear
when the
loudly.
two of them met again,
Allure seductress
Allure
was
seductress
shocked.
couldn't believe
She didn't
her
expect
eyes.
that there would be
How
a man
Wu-wei,
who wasn't afraid
upright
of
and
death in this
outspoken in the
world,
past,
had actually become a sloppy old man. She found an opportunity to stop him alone and interrogate him. However, he said that his name was How Sansi and that he didn't know Allure seductress or How Wu-wei. She mistook him for someone else. After that, he smiled amiably and left. That's right, Allure seductress cultivated a kind of seduction technique which had the effect of retaining one's youth. However, with How Wu-wei's cultivation, he shouldn't have aged so quickly and become so much older than her. Even if he did age quickly, how could it be so easy for two people who had been in love for so many years to mistake each other? Both of them weren't ordinary people. Moreover, how could she hide the inexplicable sadness that flashed through How Wu-wei's smiling eyes? After she spent a lot of effort to figure out what had happened to How Wu-wei, Allure seductress cried bitterly for 3 days and 3 nights. She brought all the misfortune to How Wu-wei. After that, she begged Kwang Tsung several times, wanting to meet How Wu-wei. However, how could Kwang Tsung agree to her request of a demon? It was already good enough that he didn't kill her. Therefore, she tried to force her way in several times, but how could Allure seductress break in alone? She almost lost her life in Kwang Tsung's hands. After understanding that one person's strength was too insignificant for Kwang Tsung, Allure seductress made up her mind and concentrated on her cultivation. After another decade, she sat on the position of the palace master of the enchanted palace as she wished. When she finally firmly grasped the entire enchanted palace in her hands and was about to visit Kwang Tsung again, she didn't expect that How Wu-wei would be killed. Allure seductress felt like she was struck by lightning. Everything she had done all these years was for How Wu-wei. Who knew that it would end up like this? For a moment, Allure seductress was filled with boundless anger. However, the culprit, Daluo sect, was not something that her enchanted palace could afford to offend. Therefore, she picked Kwang Tsung to vent her anger first. Later, when Kwang Tsung's spirit stone mine was attacked, Yu Qianqiu personally experienced it. After that, Enchanted Palace was wiped out by Kwang Tsung in retaliation. This was also something that the entire cultivation world knew. This story was a bit too melodramatic. After listening to it, Yu Qianqiu was speechless. He didn't know what to
say. No wonder Lu Wanwan said that he was Hao Wuwei's disciple. So this was what happened.
Sigh. That old man really couldn't tell. He really didn't expect that there would be such a romantic past. This allure seductress was actually Master's woman. Then wouldn't she really be on the same level as Master's wife? Chapter 223. Hee. What? You didn't expect this, right? The allure beauty laughed like a silver bell. I sigh. With a thought, Yu Qinsho's flying swords disappeared, removing his defense. Scratching his head, he walked in front of the allure beauty, smiled bitterly and bowed. Disciple Yu Qinsho greets ma'am. For a moment he still found it hard to associate Hao Sansi, that old man, with this charming woman, but the two of them had an affair. He had to accept it even if he didn't want to. From the old man's previous signs, he still had this woman in his heart, otherwise he wouldn't have given up on himself to that extent. If he didn't accept it, his conscience wouldn't be at ease and the old man wouldn't die in peace. Yo, that's a good boy. The allure beauty obviously liked the word mom. With a charming smile, she walked closer and teasingly hooked his chin with her finger, and even put her arm around his shoulder. That pair of bouncy and plump breasts rubbed against his shoulder from time to time, causing Yu Qinsho to smile bitterly. Was this woman really as infatuated as she said? Sigh. What a stunner. Damn it. It was really irritating. Unfortunately, he wouldn't do that kind of thing even if he was beaten to death. Cough cough. But, why did you go to a place like 10,000 Flower Brothel? Yu Qinsho changed the topic and took the opportunity to stand further away. He didn't want to cause a nosebleed in front of Mom. What do you mean I went to a place like 10,000 Flower Brothel? 10,000 Flower Brothel originally belonged to the Enchanted Palace. What's so strange about me, the Palace Master, being in my own territory? The allure beauty laughed. What? Yu Qinsho was stunned. So Enchanted Palace also runs a brothel. That's not right. As far as I know, before Enchanted Palace fell, this 10,000 Flower Brothel already existed. You brat, your words are really unpleasant. The temptress rolled her eyes and sighed. Forget it, you're quite pleasing to the eye. I'll tell you some secrets. Did you think that after An Kuang-tsung raised the Phantom Palace to the ground, I would have no place to stay and could only hide in a brothel? Was that not the case? Yu Qinsho smiled noncommittally. This cheap mistress had really gotten into character. The 100 Charms beauty rolled her eyes again and continued, you should know the Pink Sect, which is ranked 10th in the Devil Dao and ranked 9th after my magical illusion palace fell, right? The Red Pink Sect was known for its charm techniques. The 10,000 Flower House in the secular world was opened by the Red Pink Sect. Other than being the illusory Demon Palace's palace mistress, I'm also the sect master of the Pink Sect. You don't know this, right? Ah. Yu Qinsho was stunned. To be exact, he was confused by this complicated relationship. The 10,000 Flower House originally belonged to the Magical Illusion Palace, and now it was opened by the Pink Sect. After sorting out his thoughts, he finally understood. He really didn't expect that this mistress had a double identity. She was actually in charge of two big sections. The 100 Charms beauty said disdainfully, outsiders thought that the Magical Illusion Palace, which is ranked 5th in the Devil Dao, couldn't withstand the attack of the Righteous Dao's ranked 6th, An Kuang-tsung, and collapsed just like that. But who knew that my Magical Illusion Palace had diverted more than half of its strength to run the Pink Sect? It was really because of the sudden incident that we were caught unprepared by An Kuang-tsung and suffered a big loss. Otherwise, with An Kuang-tsung's strength, it wouldn't have been so easy to succeed. I don't understand this. Yu Qinsho frowned and said, why did your Magical Illusion Palace divert more than half of its strength to run the Pink Sect? Wouldn't it be better to spend more effort to improve the Magical Illusion Palace's strength? Otherwise, it wouldn't have suffered losses under An Kuang-tsung's hands. Do you think it's easy for me, a woman, to sit in the position of Magical Illusion Palace's palace master? The 100 Charms beauty asked back and faintly let out a breath and said, since I, a woman, have taken the position, I naturally have to come up with means to convince my subordinates. For a long time, my Magical Illusion Palace has always been ranked 5th in the Devil Dao. In the past, which sect master didn't want to improve their strength, and didn't want to take a step forward in the ranking? But if you send them up, the sects above them will inevitably come down. Let's not talk about the Righteous Dao's reaction for now.
Once you threaten the top-ranked sects, then your sect will inevitably be suppressed by the higher-ups, and it will be very difficult to take a step forward. So when I first took office, I began to quietly divert people to develop the pink sect. The effect is very obvious. Those top sects won't spend too much effort to pay attention to such a small sect. With the support of my magical illusion palace, the pink sect climbed to the 10th place in just a few years. With this credit, it also allowed me to sit firmly in the position of magical illusion palace master. Master's wife is really wise and powerful. This disciple admires you. After flattering her, Yu Qianqiu smiled and said, Master's wife told me such a big secret. Aren't you afraid that this disciple will leak it? Leak my secret? The 100 Charms beauty looked him up and down, looking at him like she was looking at a stupid pig, and sneered, You should worry about yourself. The Deluo sect wants to get rid of you as soon as possible. On Kwangsung has even put up a bounty for your capture. The entire Cultivation Alliance is looking for you everywhere, and the Devil Dao is also looking for you everywhere. Unless you continue to hide in the National Pillar General's office and continue to be a servant, don't show your face in the cultivation world. Once your whereabouts are exposed, you should be prepared to be killed by the Righteous Dao or join the Devil Dao. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. He naturally didn't know about this and couldn't help but smile and said, Master's wife, are you trying to scare me? I'm just a core formation realm disciple. How could I cause such a big commotion between the righteous and Devil Dao? The 100 Charms beauty casually plucked the strings of the zither beside her and leisurely said, The person who provides Yu Qianqiu's whereabouts will be rewarded with 1 million high-grade spirit stones. The person who takes Yu Qianqiu's head will be rewarded with 5 million high-grade spirit stones. And the person who captures Yu Qianqiu alive will be rewarded with 10 million high-grade spirit stones. If you don't believe me, go to the capital and shout, I am Yu Qianqiu, then you will know whether I'm telling the truth or not. Yu Qianqiu looked towards the direction of the dimly lit capital, and his face twitched. He didn't have the guts to try. In fact, he didn't even need to try to know that he killed sect master Ong Kwangsung, so the other party definitely wouldn't let him go easily. It's fine to be a coward once in a while, but it's not in my character to be a coward all the time. As the saying goes, the first to strike gains the upper hand, and the last to strike suffers a calamity. Since both the righteous and Devil Dao are after me, then come. Who's afraid of who? If worst comes to worst, I'll just go back to Utopia and farm. Besides, I haven't fully used my troops yet. A bunch of dogs, do they really think I'm easy to step on? Thinking of this, Yu Qianqiu narrowed his eyes and lightly snorted, and a trace of ruthlessness flashed across his face. The 100 Charms beauty had been sizing him up with a smile. Mistress, you didn't call me here just to tell me this, did you? Yu Qianqiu turned around and asked. Of course not. The 100 Charms beauty smiled and said, I also didn't expect to meet you today. I'm telling you this because I know you want to avenge your master, and I also want to avenge your master. That's why I'm telling you this, and Yu Qianqiu asked with an inquisitive look in his eyes. The 100 Charms beauty deliberately paused, then chuckled and said, And I also know that you definitely have someone helping you. I heard that when you killed Lu Changqing in Swallow City, you brought hundreds of men in black, and there seem to be experts at the end of the tribulation passing stage. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult for you to kill Lu Changqing with your ability. So, back then, when I was at the Spirit Stone mine in Ong Kwangsung, I planted a strand of divine sense on you. Who knew that it would be dispelled in the blink of an eye? It seems that your background isn't simple. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.